classmates mocked Wu Sanai, thinking she'd completely lost it. Jean and Moe knocked her envelopes to the ground. Some girls didn't understand why the others were laughing at her like that, as if that was the sole reason they came to school. Wu Sanai's life was a mess. No friends, and now she was bringing glue sticks to school for her side hustle. The bullies, bored with her, turned to taking selfies while other students prepared for math class. Ignoring everyone, Wu Sanai continued working, putting on her earphones to block out the noise. As she worked, Biao Jun, asleep on his desk, received a message from Zhang. Zhang had gone to the store to buy dinner. He didn't buy meat, but spotted dumplings like his dad made. Only one pack remained on the shelf. Just as Zhang reached for it, Wu Sanai snatched it right in front of him. She was in a hurry. The 10% discount had just started. Despite being classmates, she didn't even greet him. Back home, she divided the entire bag of dumplings into 10 portions, freezing them for a rainy day. But then she decided today was the special occasion, making a portion of dumplings with rice as a side dish. She also had a side hustle collecting recyclables under the bridge, after which she delivered the envelopes to her clients. While she was sorting the recyclables, a cleaner noticed her and praised her for keeping the streets clean. Back at school, as she was gluing envelopes, Biao Jun noticed her, but a classmate pulled him towards the gym. Both basketball teams were already waiting, and Biao Jun didn't want to keep them. After school, Wu Sanai went to the restroom, where the bullies were waiting to mock her again. They viciously insulted her. Jean and Moe came up with a new idea to make her classmates' day even worse. The girls rigged a bucket of water above the stall door. When Wu Sanai opened it, the water cascaded down on her. The bullies quickly slipped away before being caught, but Jean and Moe filmed the whole embarrassing scene. Soaked and looking pathetic, Wu Sanai was more worried about her envelopes getting wet. It was for her side hustle. She checked her backpack. Luckily, everything inside was still dry. Wu Sanai jumped under the hand dryer to dry her hair, but knowing time was tight, she gave up and rushed to the store for the sale. But by the time she arrived, the sale was over. Wu Sanai slumped to the ground, glaring at a classmate walking away with the last carton of eggs. He walked past her. Wu Sanai couldn't believe those eggs weren't hers. The next morning, Lawyer Kim called a meeting to settle the late chairman's inheritance case and announced the final results. The heir had already been determined. Before the announcement, Lawyer Kim thanked everyone for arriving on time. Meanwhile, after finishing her breakfast toast, Jean Moe was suddenly hit with stomach cramps, getting a taste of karma. She was in a restroom stall when a strange noise echoed, followed by a bucket of water crashing down on her. Lawyer Kim announced that all of the chairman's property and his wife's assets would be inherited by their minor child, so they needed a court-appointed guardian. But first, Lawyer Kim decided to show the heir's photo on the screen. It turned out to be Wu Sanai, who at that moment was getting revenge on the classmate who had been bullying her. She couldn't take it anymore. Wu Sanai tried to keep a low profile, but Jean Moe kept bothering her. She didn't care if anyone found out, as the restroom was empty, but the guilt was still eating at her. Back home, she decided to make some snacks, but then the apartment management fee bill arrived, along with hefty electricity and water bills. Worried, Wu Sanai gave up on the washing machine, hand-washing everything. She tried to use fewer lights, ate from one plate to save water, and even skipped showering on weekends. That morning, Biao Jun's dad was rushing to work. Biao Jun asked his hurried father to pick up some sandwiches on the way. He then quickly cleaned up and headed to the market, where there were discounts of up to 60%. On the way, he picked up a flyer for a buy-one-get-one free product. Wu Sanai also saw this advertisement while collecting recyclables. She also wanted to win some prizes by reaching a certain number of steps. Her classmates saw this on the app and thought she was just jogging during her break, finding it a bit odd. But she knew that by walking 2,004 steps in 10 steps, she could get free shampoo. She won a set of canned tuna by answering questions and toothpaste by solving puzzles. Today, she could also get paid for her side hustle. She worked hard and could finally treat herself to some grilled pork and go to the grocery store for the big sale. Suddenly, she saw a group of teachers walking by, along with a man in a suit who was being given a tour. They were showing him things on the first floor. Wu Sanai quickly turned around, hoping no one saw her. She recognized the man standing next to the principal, but didn't know why he was there. She wanted to run, but her feet were rooted to the spot. Just then, Biao Jun strolled over, and Wu Sanai grabbed his arm, asking him if she could stand next to him until the group passed. She didn't let go immediately, but held his hand tightly, even hurting him. She immediately apologized, excusing herself by saying that she suddenly felt dizzy and then realized that she had wrinkled his sleeve. He simply asked her if she was okay. Then a friend called him over, saying his phone was with John. After school, Woo San-I rushed to her boss to get paid and thanked her, and the boss told her to keep up the good work. Being able to eat real meat made her incredibly happy, and she didn't even think to hide the envelope with the money, making a huge mistake. As soon as she approached the street, a motorcyclist sped by and snatched the envelope from her hand. Biao Jun returned home to find his dad slumped on the sofa, having fallen asleep without even taking a shower. Returning to his room, Biao Jun felt something was off with his arm and realized the spot where Woo San-I had grabbed him was now bruised. Woo San-I reported the robbery to the police, saying her cash had been stolen, but she hadn't seen the rider's face or the license plate number. The street cameras hadn't captured the plate either, so the police asked nearby parked cars for dashcam footage. Woo San-I was completely devastated, but the staff told her to go home and promised to call her as soon as they had any news. Arriving home, the girl was still distraught, and at first, she couldn't even enter the correct code for the main gate. She then cried the entire night, regretting not hiding the money envelope immediately. She figured since no one would find her envelope anyway, there was no point in trying. Next time, she would be smarter. But she desperately needed the money, so Woo San-I doubled, even tripled her workload, skipping breakfast altogether. She only ate when there was free food and spent every spare minute working on her envelope-making side hustle. Exhausted, she dozed off at her desk, then berated herself, thinking sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. In her drowsiness, she accidentally knocked over the envelopes, and as they scattered across the floor, Biao Jun came over to help her pick them up. But when he turned back, he was stunned. Woo San-I's face was completely covered in marker scribbles. Biao Jun didn't know how to tell her without laughing, so he simply took out his phone and opened the camera, letting her see for herself. Woo San-I's heart sank. This wasn't just a prank, it was a nightmare. She had a vague idea who did it. She rushed to the sink and scrubbed furiously, but the marker wouldn't budge. She knew this was definitely Jean Moe's revenge for the water splashing incident. But right now, cleaning her face was the priority. A passing boy stopped her, saying, "Hey, water won't work. It's a permanent marker." He happened to have sunscreen in his pocket, saying it should work, and tossed it to her. "Here, you'll need this." Woo San-I applied the sunscreen hopefully, and to her relief, the scribbles actually started to fade. When all the marks were gone, her savior realized she was actually very pretty. Someone called out to him, and Woo San-I learned his name was Yoo Chan. It was Biao Jun who called out, asking him what he was doing there, as they had agreed to meet in the clubroom. Yoo Chan hurried towards his friend, and Woo San-I just managed to thank him before realizing he'd left his sunscreen behind. Back home, the girl cooked rice, but it was so bland she almost reached for a pack of dumplings. But then she remembered her recent foolish mistakes, so even plain rice felt like a miracle now. Suddenly, someone knocked on her door. Woo San-I was surprised, not expecting anyone, but went to open it anyway. At the door stood her neighbor, holding a jar of kimchi. Woo San-I was overwhelmed with gratitude, bowing so low her head almost touched the floor. Back in her apartment, the girl swore she'd never tasted anything so delicious in her life. The next day, the students were required to clean the lab before returning to class. Everyone complained because it was lunchtime and their stomachs were rumbling, but they persevered to finish quickly. Woo San-I, appearing out of nowhere, stepped forward and offered to take over the cleaning. The other students were stunned, but agreed. Alone, the girl suddenly realized she'd messed up until she spotted a 101 coin under a desk. She cheered as she bent down to pick it up. Just then, a female classmate lingered at the door, asking Yoo Chan if he had a girlfriend. He replied curtly that he didn't. The girl then asked him out, but he rejected her, saying he wasn't interested in girls. The girl's mind started racing, but Yoo Chan just insisted on being friends. Jubin thought he was being harsh, telling him to just say he didn't like her instead of making things up. The girl walked away, and Yoo Chan heard rustling behind the desks. Moments later, Woo San-I peeked out, apologizing for unintentionally eavesdropping. He recognized her, and she thanked him again for the sunscreen yesterday, returning it to him. Yoo Chan told her she didn't have to return it and admitted he was glad it helped. She suddenly felt curious about the confession she'd overheard, but quickly dismissed it as none of her business, turning to leave. However, Yoo Chan confessed that, honestly, he was more comfortable with guys, leaving Woo San-I speechless. She still couldn't understand why he was so open with someone he'd just met, someone he didn't even know. Woo San-ai reminded him that not everyone in the world is a good person, but just then, Yoo Chan blurted out that he admired her and suggested they become friends. This caught Woo San-ai completely off guard. Later, while she was gluing envelopes, lost in thought, the tape suddenly slipped from her hand. The entire roll flew towards Biao Jun, who had just sat down, hitting him squarely on the head. Sammy apologized frantically, afraid he'd be angry, but Young simply picked up the tape, placed it on the table beside her, and walked out. Sammy was relieved he didn't yell, but somehow, the incident left a bad taste in her mouth. That wasn't the main issue, though. After school, she went to her boss, hoping to get an advance on her paycheck. The lady boss felt bad about her situation and kindly gave her some cash, which really cheered Sammy up. The girl even cried over the envelope, vowing never to forget the woman's kindness, then quickly stashed it away. Next, Sam went to a clearance sale where everything was buy one get one free. She felt like she'd found heaven. Then it hit her, if she teamed up with someone, everything would be half price. Now, she just needed to find a partner. She spotted Biao Jun on the other side of the store, but hesitated to approach him until he noticed her. Sam hid behind a display rack, telling herself to only get what she really needed. She figured checking out separately would be perfect, until a kid almost bumped into her. The collision sent her shoulder into the shelf, and sauce bottles on the top shelf started to wobble. Panicked, she braced herself for impact, but then Biao Jun lunged forward and caught the falling items. He stepped closer, clearly sensing she wanted to talk, so she spilled the beans about her plan. Luckily, he agreed, and soon they were both loaded with groceries. John even helped her carry everything back home. Now, this classmate sitting next to her suddenly seemed very endearing. When John got home, his dad questioned why he bought so much when he'd only intended to get soy sauce. His dad reminded him they had plenty in stock, so June explained about the crazy sale. Sam decided to make dumplings for dinner, her mind already buzzing with ideas on how to spend the money. In the hallway of her apartment building, she realized someone was following her, walking the exact same route. Creeped out, the footsteps behind her followed all the way to her apartment door. She thought maybe it was her family coming to see her. Sam, he turned around, holding up an onion, reminding whoever it was that she'd already told them to stop following her. But when she saw who the stalker actually was, she dropped the vegetable in shock. It was Yoo Chan. He'd heard someone moved in 2 months ago, but never guessed it was her. He admitted he lived across the street, and Sam instantly realized he was the kind lady's son. Chan couldn't believe they'd never run into each other before. Sam shrugged, saying she was always out early and back late. Yoo Chan was ecstatic they were neighbors. He even decided to start waking up early so they could walk to school together. Sam didn't think that was a good idea. She got home and immediately started admiring all the groceries she'd snagged. Meanwhile, in another house, her distant relatives gossiped about how Sam was living a destitute life, unconcerned about her inheritance. A man explained that her uncle, the legal guardian, was keeping a close eye on her since she was set to inherit everything. The lady figured if Sam didn't change her attitude, this mess would end badly, but they couldn't just lock her up. All three worried about whether she was eating enough. One had even tried sneaking her food, but Sam just got angry. The lady reminisced about changing her diapers, admitting she missed Sam terribly. These relatives were in a panic. She had no parents, was all alone, and they needed to figure out how to get her fed. The next day, the students discovered the school chef was gone, replaced by complete strangers in the kitchen. Hey, did you see? There's steak on the menu now. And it was a buffet, so everyone grabbed about 10 servings and started devouring it like there was no tomorrow. But Sam felt something was fishy, like why would chefs from a conglomerate hotel be working in the school cafeteria? Later, the school cafeteria started getting news coverage, even trending on social media, but Sam knew exactly what it meant. One day, Sam bumped into Biao Jun at the school gate, but their teacher immediately called them over, asking for help. He showed them a mountain of books in the library, asking them to organize all the books alphabetically by title. The teacher left the task to them, rushing off to an urgent meeting and promising to buy them treats as a reward. They decided to start organizing from opposite ends of the room, but Sam accidentally dropped her pen, which rolled under a nearby table. John just started to organize, saw his classmates sprawled on the floor, try to reach something. Sam explained her pen rolled too far, but when June offered to help, she waved him off. She finally retrieved the pen, but now she was covered in dust from under the table. He walked over and gently plucked a crumpled spiderweb from her hair, explaining that she got dirty. Sam thanked him, and he told her to hurry up. Class was about to start. Later, Jun ran into Yoo Chan, mentioning he'd spent lunchtime with Sam in the library. Chan admitted they were friends too, then bragged that they even lived next door to each other. He'd had no idea she lived there either and had run into her completely by chance yesterday. Chan even confessed he had a crush on her, hoping they would get along in the future. Out of nowhere, a cyclist sped past the group of boys, bumping into Yoo Chan's shoulder and knocking him down. Biao Jun caught his friend, one hand on his back and the other gripping his wrist. Samai, who was picking up trash with tongs, saw them frozen in that awkward position. In one smooth motion, she used her tongs to grab the can that Yoo Chan had dropped when he fell. Yoo Chan, dumbfounded, was amazed by her maneuver. She just wagged a finger and said, "Watch out for cyclists." Yoo Chan noticed that Samai was jogging while picking up litter, and thought it was incredibly cool. Later, Samai went to the store with her coupons and got a great deal on a whole bag of vegetables. Back home, she sorted her purchases and froze snack-sized portions for later. She was happy that her sweatpants still fit and that her boss had agreed to lend her old-school uniform. While washing her tracksuit, the image of Biao Jun holding Yoo Chan flashed through her mind. The next day, a girl gave Yoo Chan a bracelet she had spent all night weaving. He liked it, but then suddenly felt a chill, wondering if the other girls felt it too. Just then, Samai rounded the corner, and the students waved her over, Yoo Chan calling her over with a smug grin. The girls fumed, hoping Samai wouldn't even look at them. She didn't say anything, just walked away, giving the girls a pointed glare before she left. Later, Samai and Biao Jun's teacher pulled them aside, thanking them for their help and explaining he'd been called away to an emergency meeting. Instead of buying them the promised drinks, he gave them gift cards to the grocery store so they could stock up on snacks. The girl was thrilled. She'd been meaning to buy trash bags. Joanna barely spoke during their subsequent walk. Then he suddenly pulled a roll of tape out of his pocket, explaining that it must have slipped into his bag, and handed it to her. Samai was startled when he said her name, but when she reached for the tape, she fumbled and dropped it. As she bent to pick it up, she overheard Joanna call out to Yoo Chan, who immediately asked curiously where the two of them had been. Samai instantly decided they were a couple and abruptly straightened up. However, she didn't notice that he had also leaned down slightly, and her forehead collided with his nose. She immediately started apologizing. She heard an unpleasant crunch upon impact, and then saw blood gushing from Biao Jun's nose. They rushed to the nurse's office. Samai stayed outside, berating herself for her silly assumptions. Then Yoo Chan came out, and she bombarded him with questions. Was Biao Jun okay? Was his nose broken? The nurse said it was just bruised. The bleeding had stopped, and Biao Jun was resting. The girl kept apologizing for injuring the boy and insisted her head was completely fine. She almost blurted out that she thought they were a couple, but Yoo Chan assured her they were just school friends. The girl realized she'd completely misread the situation because of what she'd seen earlier and resolved to apologize. The nurse had Biao Jun stay in bed a little longer while she went to inform the teacher. The guy couldn't believe his luck. His bruises hadn't even healed, and now his nose was injured. Yoo Chan kept explaining to Sam that things were complicated, and Joanna didn't like him the way he liked her. That night, Samai watched a video where one guy confessed to another, thinking it was unrequited, only for the other to suddenly say he felt exactly the same way. Samai immediately pictured her classmates in the same scenario. But she pushed those thoughts aside. There was work to be done. It was time to peel the tape off the boxes and reorganize the bottles. She even started sorting the recycling, tidying up the hallway before heading home. A small dog nearly knocked her over, and then Yoo Chan appeared, scolding the dog. He apologized to his neighbor, realizing the dog had darted into her apartment, and asked to come in and retrieve it. The dog, named Lauren, was nowhere to be seen, its owner complaining about how the dog slipped into other people's homes uninvited. The dog appeared in another room, and Yoo Chan apologized to his neighbor again as he grabbed it. He explained that he'd meant to untangle the leash wrapped around the dog's paws, but it ran off, and then he apologized to Lauren too. Samai assured him it was okay, saying she liked dogs, but the neighbor noticed she lived alone. But he then decided it was none of his business. The girl confessed that her parents had passed away recently. Meanwhile, her relatives were thinking about the approaching anniversary of her aunt and uncle's death. The girl asked her brother if Sam would be coming to the memorial service they were holding for the first time. He just suggested going for a drink, and his sister couldn't understand how he could be so indifferent. The next day, Samai immediately approached Biao Jun and started asking about his nose. The guy assured her everything was fine. She handed him an orange, explaining that vitamin C was good for nosebleeds. He thanked her for the orange, but decided to eat it at the gym. The citrusy scent attracted the attention of other students. Yoo Chan asked Biao Jun where he got it, and he admitted it was from Samai. Yoo Chan remembered what she had said about her parents. Biao Jun offered his friend a slice, but he refused. However, Biao Jun wouldn't take no for an answer, practically shoving the orange into his mouth. Yoo Chan didn't mind, simply admitting that the citrus was actually quite sweet. Late at night, Samai handed in her work to her boss, who was surprised by how quickly she finished. She asked for more work, but her boss said there wouldn't be any until the next day. After they said goodbye, on her way home, Samai felt exhausted, knowing she was pushing herself too hard for the extra cash. Just then, she received a message from her uncle asking her to come over, but she didn't reply. She put on her headphones, immersing herself in music, only to be yanked back by someone grabbing her sweater from behind. At that moment, a car sped past right in front of her, and Samai instantly realized she had just narrowly avoided disaster. She turned around to see a breathless Biao Jun, who explained that she had run a red light. Shaken, the girl knelt on the ground, then pulled out her headphones, realizing how dangerous that had been. She even started scolding herself, then thanked Biao Jun for saving her life, or at least a few broken bones. He noticed her cool music player, and Samai admitted she'd been listening to Lee Sun-won, a name Biao Jun didn't recognize. The next morning, his dad reminded him that he was supposed to see his mom this week, and warned him not to stand her up like last time. His mom assumed his dad was stopping him and bombarded him with messages. Biao Jun went back to his room and messaged his mom, saying he couldn't make it this week and asking her to leave his dad alone for now. He just sat there thinking, then decided to look up who Lee Sun-won was. Later, Samai discovered her cassette player was jammed, so she started winding the tape with a pencil. After fixing it, she tested it out and found that only the messed up part was distorted. She felt a pang of sadness. It was her mother's. Meanwhile, Biao Jun found Lee Sun-won's music. In the morning, Yoo Chan woke up later than usual, and his mom worried he'd be late for school. She even mentioned their neighbor who woke up early to sweep in front of their house to avoid being late for school. The woman wondered why no one else came out of that apartment, then realized, Sam, I lived alone. Yoo Chan quickly got ready, picking up his pace on the way and arriving at school just on time. He overheard a conversation outside, where a kid had put in a coin but only got an empty capsule toy. The little girl insisted it was okay, but Samai pointed out that she had just lost her allowance. She added that it was perfectly normal to feel sad, and then demanded the staff refund the child's money. They saw Yoo Chan doing the same, requesting a refund, which the employee granted. He walked with Sam, and confessed that his mom had already told him about her morning chores. They ran into a worker who assumed Sam was his girlfriend, but she clarified they were just friends. Other vendors asked if she had eaten breakfast and guessed the boy beside her was her boyfriend. Someone offered her a bite to eat and shared some with her friend too. Yoo Chan realized his friend was quite popular. Later, Samai saw a security guard tending to seedlings and assured her it was a high-yield tomato plant. The man let her try transplanting the seedlings, but she was nervously unsure if she would mess it up. Meanwhile, Yoo Chan and Biao Jun watched her from afar, busy with the security guard, and then saw her beaming with joy. Biao Jun judged from her actions that she was a very strong girl. Yoo Chan suddenly blushed, muttering that he had been seeing her a lot lately, and she was always so cheerful. Biao Jun didn't understand why his friend was suddenly blushing, as he hadn't even said anything yet. Yoo Chan was sure Biao Jun was about to say something, the look in his eyes giving him away, but he pleaded with him not to. Yoo Chan, feeling the pressure of his friend's gaze, finally burst out, enough. Meanwhile, Samai was still delighted with her planting efforts. Let those yellow flowers brighten my world too, she wished aloud. Meanwhile, Samai's rivals were in a state of utter meltdown. A hair straightener was smoking, overheating, and causing chaos. They begged Mo to try it on her hair first. One girl put her hair up, another flatly refused. Then they saw Samai walking by. No time for mercy. They grabbed her. This isn't a suggestion, they warned. The whole class could hear the commotion. Everyone knew Mo was up to something again. She was being far too quiet for it to be anything good. Mo gripped Samai's hair tightly, yelling, "Don't you dare move." Suddenly, with a yell, Biao Jun strode into the room. The girls instantly released Samai. "After you," the boy said smoothly. The girls stumbled back, flustered. The handsome boy had never been this close to them before. They started panicking about the hair straightener again. Semi couldn't believe the boy had saved her again. That night, her boss brought over pumpkin mushroom miso soup. Semi added her own choice of tofu. She hadn't tasted anything like this in a long time. As someone in debt, did she deserve such a luxury? Steaming rice sat before her, a weekend treat that felt like a birthday and lottery win all rolled into one. Sam was ecstatic. Carrying the pot to her bed, she tripped, spilling everything. The girl froze, refusing to believe it. Mere seconds ago, everything had been perfect, and now she had another mess to deal with, a stained blanket to clean. More than sadness, anger burned inside Sam. She hadn't even tasted her miso soup. She didn't even know if the washing machine worked. She'd been avoiding it to save water. Her fears were confirmed when she pressed the button. Nothing. It was as if the entire universe had conspired against her. She had no choice but to drag the blanket to the laundromat. Halfway there, she understood why the previous tenant had abandoned the machine. Sam had always hand-washed her clothes. She never knew the washing machine was broken, and the laundromat was a money pit. But she couldn't hand-wash. It was too cold at night, and she needed it cleaned quickly. Then, she spotted a familiar face in a parked car. To hide, she yanked the dirty blanket over her head, using it like a hood. It was her uncle, heading straight for her apartment, probably to confront her about not replying to his messages. She was about to type a refusal to attend the memorial service when she noticed familiar sneakers close by. Biao Jun walked over, having observed her for a while. He was headed to the same laundromat. Her eyes locked onto the exorbitant prices, immediately planning to hide behind piles of clothes while her blanket dried. Then, a melody drifted from the radio, one Sam instantly recognized, Lucy's song. Even Biao Jun perked up at the name. His phone vibrated, a text from his mom. She missed him and wanted him to visit this week. As he read the message, she dozed off, exhausted from the past few days. She blinked awake, disoriented, the reality around her warped. Then it hit her. She was here to do laundry, but the washing was done. Clean sheets sat waiting beside her. Biao Jun was gone, but she knew he'd retrieve them. Just then, another text from her uncle lit up her phone. He'd stopped by, but she hadn't answered. He told her to stop her nonsense and return where she belonged. Yoo Chan's classmates cornered him at karaoke, trying to drag him along, but he had to slip away. Ben was hoping he wouldn't reject her after their last coffee date. Her friends later said she cried buckets afterward. Ben threatened to cry again if Yoo Chan stood her up. Her friends urged her to get him. He reiterated his important meeting, then spotted Sam nearby and declared the meeting was with her. Then he left. The girls were confused, especially seeing her with a blanket. He quickly pulled Sam into the charade. He wondered why she was here with a blanket, then noticed the tear tracks on her face. She'd just read her uncle's warning. If she disobeyed, there might be no going back. Yoo Chan pressed for answers, but she couldn't reveal the truth, only growl, "I wasn't crying." He asked about the laundry, and she mumbled about spilled soup, hence the laundromat. She insisted she was fine, just annoyed, hadn't even eaten. Besides, it was her first time at a laundromat, and the prices were insane. No wonder she was furious. She was going crazy, thinking money grew on trees while everything got more expensive. Her rant reminded Yoo Chan of his mom, but Sam just bluntly stated the woman had a point. Yoo Chan said he couldn't understand her anger. Honestly, her look scared him, like she could hurt someone. But Sam said she hadn't realized she was angry until he pointed it out. It turned out she was angry because she couldn't fight back. But Yoo Chan still didn't understand. He returned home to his younger brother, Yoo-ho's, and a puppy named Laron. Finding they'd already eaten, he promised to play with Yoo-ho's after showering. But his mind raced with Sam's anger and who she couldn't bring down. Now Sam was preparing for the memorial service, which was actually a food festival, so she was all in. Heading up the steps, a guy rushing to the restroom nearly knocked her over. But the slightest bump sent Sam's phone flying. No phone, and she was doomed. Miraculously, Biao Jun caught it mid-air, earning instant praise. He was her hero again. She offered him another orange, just like last time. He wondered why it was always oranges. Now Sam practically worshipped him. Without him, she'd be in serious trouble. In class, she turned on her cassette player, thinking the tape was stuck again, but when she checked, everything was fine. Moa and her friends suddenly snatched the player. Incredulous anyone still listened to such outdated junk. Sam demanded its return, her expression making it clear she was angry. Moa was stunned. Usually, Sam wouldn't react, but but the moment she grabbed it, Sam's eyes went completely wild. She realized how precious the cassette was to Sam and immediately yanked the tape out of the player. The other students were stunned, waiting to see what would happen next. This bully was going too far. Sam lost it, lunging at the bully, ready to punch her in the face. And Moe freaked out, thinking she was about to get hit, but Sam just snatched the cassette back and strode back to her seat. The bully was relieved not to have her nose bloodied, but still muttered that Sam was crazy. The other girls stood up for Sam, calling their 3-on-1 act cowardly and utterly bullying, disrupting the whole class. An argument broke out in the class while Sam rewound the tape, praying it wasn't ruined. But the audio was now choppy in a few places, making her heart sink. She shoved the headphones into her pocket. Yoo Chan noticed her heavy sigh and asked why she was alone. Where was Biao Jun? Some seniors had made him clean the gym. Yoo Chan guessed she was going for another run and offered to join. She warned it would be muddy and gross, but Yoo Chan assured her it was fine. As they left, two girls immediately spotted them and recognized Sam. They started asking where she'd been, as they hadn't been able to reach her and she'd locked her Instagram account. They noticed something was different about her hair. She'd cut it, and the girls reminded her how good it looked long. Yoo Chan realized they were friends from her old circle, and they assumed he was her boyfriend. They introduced themselves as Park Yoon and Lee Ju-in. Yoo Chan introduced himself too, but Sam suddenly decided to leave, despite Ju-in telling her to wait. He quickly excused himself from his new acquaintances and caught up with his classmate, while the two girls were left gossiping about Sam's oddness. They couldn't understand why she was wearing such a strange uniform, but were even more shocked that she apparently had a boyfriend. Yoo Chan and Sam walked in silence for a bit before she asked him not to ask about those friends they just ran into. She knew she was acting weird and admitted they were close in middle school, but she'd been avoiding them. Later, Yoo Chan called Jun to check in. Jun explained that cleaning took a long time, but the seniors had worked with him too. He then promised to buy Jun dinner before he got home. Jun admitted he'd just met with his dad, so he said goodbye. After hanging up, Yoo Chan thought his voice sounded nice. The next day, Sammy waited for the quiz results. She was nervous, but saw she placed 5th, the prize being cooking oil. Enough for a whole year. Then, she overheard girls discussing Jun. The guy had always been quiet, so people were only just starting to talk about him, while Yoo Chan had always been popular. The two were such a good match. Visually, they were like something out of a web drama. Sam decided she was living like a hermit because she had no idea what these people were talking about. The boys noticed her confused but happy expression and guessed something good must have happened. The girls standing between them, and Sam assumed the boys were looking at them and sighed happily. Later, Biao Jun got back home and threw himself into cleaning. Though it took a long time, he wasn't worn out. Then his dad texted, "Meet for dinner tonight. Be ready." Meanwhile, Sam stopped a saleswoman, asking how to cook a specific dish. Another woman passing by reminded her that no chili powder was allowed in ancestral rites food. Absolutely not. A man chimed in about how many kinds of fruit should be used and categorized by color. As he explained, Sam realized experience trumped Google searches. She was learning more tricks than any recipe website could offer. At the market, she got everything she needed except the beef. Luckily, the grocery store was having a 50% off sale. Sam remembered she needed to make soup, which required meat, but when she got to the store, there was a huge line. She knew waiting wouldn't work, so she weaved through the crowd like a pro. Squeezed in, she felt like a sardine in a can, but hey, she got that pack of meat. Then, trying to escape the chaos, she got stuck. But a stranger, out of nowhere, yanked her wrist. With a sharp tug, the girl popped out of the crowd like a champagne cork. She was thrilled to be free of the crush. Then she saw her savior was none other than the popular Biao Jun, who didn't seem in a hurry to let go of her hand. He asked if she'd snagged a pack of meat, and she proudly held it up, grinning. Just then, they announced the beef was sold out. She panicked, but he just said, "I'm here for pork." At checkout, the total was 34,500 won. She groaned. It was way over her budget. Her cart was full of everything for the ancestral rites, except the beef. She stared at the basket in a panic. Biao Jun told the cashier he'd pay for the rest. He said, "Pay me back later." Outside, she handed him a note that said, "I owe you," then thanked him. Back home, Sam felt like she was totally in debt. She'd taken out loans before, even worked a second job. She'd have to pay it back once she moved out. Her finances were a mess, but she was glad she'd rented a place. A total nightmare. The the power went out. Sam thought, did I forget to pay the electricity bill this month? Then she remembered the automatic payment had gone through. She double-checked, peeking out the window. Every other house had their lights on. Then she headed towards the stairwell, where Yoo Chan was already standing, muttering with his phone's flashlight on. Is it just our house? Other neighbors started coming out of their apartments too. Some were about to call the building manager, but Yoo Chan decided to call Jun. He video called him, showing their pitch-black surroundings, but Jun didn't understand why he was video calling. Just then, Jun noticed a ghost-like figure behind Sam in the darkness. As the silhouette approached, it turned out to be Biao Jun. He looked quite scary though. The girl flicked Biao Jun's pinky finger, reminding him she hadn't forgotten the money she owed him, and he acknowledged it. Yoo Chan, unaware of their finger communication, hoped they weren't fighting, but Sam said it was nothing. The power came back on, and Yoo Chan's mom suddenly appeared, reminding him it was dinner time. She asked their neighbor if she'd eaten, then invited her over for dinner. Yoo Chan introduced Sam as his little bro and reminded his mom that their dog already knew the little guy. At the dinner table, Sam learned that Yoo Chan had an older brother serving in the military. Yoo Chan's mom asked where Sam's parents were. She froze. Yoo Chan told his mom to let her eat in peace. His mom immediately apologized, saying she was just happy about the girl's visit and encouraged her to come over again. After dinner, Sam thanked them but left before dessert, saying she had other things to do. The next day, it was pouring rain, and Moe was annoyed by the weather, then spotted someone wearing their school uniform. The person was walking with an umbrella, so Moe asked to share. But when she saw it was Sam, she got even angrier and wanted to walk alone, but Sam grabbed her sleeve, offering to walk together. And Moe cursed at her, demanding that she let go and stay away from her. She didn't want to share an umbrella with a crazy person, but Sam kept following her. At school, Moe threatened to make Sam pay for this, but Sam just walked away silently. A while later, Sam finished the envelope work, pleased that she'd done it quickly and could now take care of the ritual things. Then she noticed Yoo Chan waiting for Biao Jun, who had been called away again by a senior student. Yoo Chan admitted he was envious that Sam and Biao Jun got to sit together, but the girl reminded him that the boys should stick together. Yoo Chan confessed he also wanted to be in the same class as Jun, his voice loud enough for other students to hear. They couldn't believe these kids were hanging out with Sam, wondering why anyone would bother with her. Yoo Chan cut them off, stating that he wasn't just hanging out with Sam. They were best friends. He was the one who'd asked to be friends in the first place. The girls blushed, promising to keep it a secret, but still disbelieving their friendship. Jun bought a buy-one-get-one-free drink, but he didn't need the second one. Then he overheard the police telling Sam they couldn't find the thief, and the motorcycle was stolen too. The police also promised to do their best, even though it wouldn't be easy. Sam expressed her understanding and thanked them for their efforts. Biao Jun realized his classmate had been robbed and admitted he'd only seen such things in dramas. He wondered how long ago it had happened, but Sam just declared she would pay him back within 3 days. He told her not to worry about it, but she hated owing people and promised right then and there to pay back everything. Two men nearby started fighting. Jun handed the girl a drink, explaining it was today's special. That evening, Sam was in the kitchen, but the food was burning and she was about to lose it. Her soup was bland and watery too. She pulled out all her plates, but it still wasn't enough. So she used mugs. Soon, the table was set, and Sam smiled happily, feeling like she'd finally managed, except there was no alcohol, only her mom's favorite coffee. It still felt a bit shabby, but she hoped her parents would like it. Then she bowed to the table. Sam had been completely exhausted lately, and the moment she bowed, she collapsed onto the floor. She woke up to sunlight streaming through the window, even though she had secretly hoped morning would never come. At school, basketball practice started. Jun was playing hard on the court, while Yoo Chan slumped listlessly on the bench. He wasn't feeling well. Two girls approached him, asking if they could sit next to him. Then they noticed Jun's smooth moves. They observed his impressive physical abilities, and it seemed even the other players envied him. Lately, Jun had become a hot topic. Senior girls were all smitten with his looks. Then, as the basketball team packed up to leave, a teacher called Jun over, handing him an application form for a book he wanted. The teacher explained that the library was expanding its collection, so they were distributing these forms for students to request books they'd like. The teacher handed over the form, and Sam, who had dozed off for a second, jolted awake, realizing she'd just lost consciousness. The teacher was startled by her puffy face, realizing the girl had serious problems. Sam just insisted she didn't need any books right now. She just wanted to sleep. Even she found it strange how sleepy she was, figuring she must have stayed up too late studying for some stupid ritual the night before. The next second, her head slammed down on the desk, but Jun was quick enough to cushion it with his jacket, saving her from hitting herself. He realized Sam was exhausted and watched her nap for a while until someone dragged him out to the balcony for a walk. Later that evening, Sam tried to figure out how to fix the jammed cassette tape. She looked it up online and learned she should fast forward first. Then she was supposed to put it in the freezer for a bit, but that didn't work at all. She heard she could digitize it, but then it wouldn't be the same tape her mom had given her. The whole thing was giving her a headache, so she shoved it back in the freezer, then realized how silly she was being, and electricity wasn't cheap either, so Sam decided to sneak home. Jun noticed his dad started coming home early, wondering if he'd been fired, but the man denied it. Dad admitted he'd been stressed lately, but it was all over now. He was finally free. Then he saw his son's school uniform and asked what class he was in. Jun just told him to go wash up and eat. The next day, Sam felt unusually energetic, thinking the freezer trick had worked. She helped everyone she could on her way, constantly picking up trash, and even chasing after a piece of paper blown away by the wind. Exams were coming up soon, and Sean didn't like how often their country had them, thinking twice a year was enough. Jun reminded his buddy they were in the library and to stop complaining and go back to studying. Meanwhile, Sam was typing on her phone, and Sean was caught staring at her profile, which looked like it was painted on a canvas. He even lifted a marker as if to draw her portrait in the air, but Jun noticed and grabbed his hand. The girl sitting at a distant table noticed the scene, but couldn't figure out what was going on. John was startled by his friend's sudden action. Jun thought he was about to doodle on his face. Sam complained that it was a permanent marker, and a red one at that. John then remembered a previous embarrassing incident involving a blue marker. John didn't understand why Jun thought he wanted to draw on his face, but he saw that the marker was indeed pointed at Jun. He couldn't explain to his friend why he'd held the marker like that, so he just assumed Jun was right. This annoyed Sean, as he explained that wasn't the case and didn't understand why his buddy didn't believe him. Coming back from the store, Sam thought to herself that she hadn't bought that much, but her recyclables were piling up. Soon, on her way home, she bumped into Biao Jun. She assumed he was there to collect his money, so she told him her paycheck was a day late. She explained she was broke, and if Biao Jun wanted his money faster, he could chop off a finger or two. The guy didn't understand why she was so agitated and calmly explained he was on his way to Chan's house. Then he continued on his way. He'd barely taken a few steps back when Sam started thanking him for his jacket, saying it had allowed her to sleep like a baby. When Jun arrived at Chan's, he admitted he wanted to see Ho and Lauren. Chan confirmed they were home alone. Chan said his mom had taken Ho to the store, but Jun figured this worked in his favor. They were there to smooth things over. At the dinner table, Biao Jun apologized for his reaction at the library. He just remembered the recent incident with Sam drawing on him. Then he confessed he didn't mind being doodled on and told his friend to stop pouting, as it was obvious he was still upset. Later, Jun admitted he'd seen Sam taking out the trash, and John confirmed she was indeed a very hardworking person. She woke up early, cleaned the stairwell, collected trash on her way to school, and also had a part-time job. John's mom had also seen Sam walking kids to school. Everyone in the neighborhood knew she was both polite and diligent. Jun was shocked to think that the girl did all of this while living completely alone. He hadn't realized she lived by herself until he remembered his friend mentioning it at school. Chan wasn't sure if he should say anything about his neighbor when his mom walked in and his little brother rushed to hug him. She immediately offered them dinner, but the guys were already stuffed, so she gave them some fruit. Meanwhile, at the law firm, they were discussing Sam's living situation and how she managed to pay her expenses with a part-time job. She hadn't touched the card she'd received. Her uncle didn't understand why she was so stubborn. John went out for a walk, thinking about dinner plans, maybe some braised short ribs. Then he noticed Sam frantically rummaging through the trash, actually looking for something she'd dropped. Jun approached her, and the girl jumped in surprise, then explained she'd accidentally dropped a coupon. She'd been saving it since last year, thought she'd thrown it away with the trash, but she'd planned to use it for toilet paper. She was sure she'd had it before leaving the house, but now she wasn't sure if the wind had blown it away or if it had fallen in the trash with something else. She even started to think it might be stuck to her shoe, and as she bent down to check, John told her to stop. He told her not to worry, reached into her hoodie, and pulled out a small piece of paper. Her face lit up. It was exactly what she'd been looking for. At that moment, the coupon and her savior shone with an angelic light. Overjoyed, Sam even shed a few tears, unable to believe the coupon had fallen out there. Then she began thanking her savior, Jun, profusely, calling him a total lifesaver. A little while later, after buying a pack of toilet paper, she realized what a disaster it would have been to lose that coupon. On her way back, she ran into an old friend who relayed a request from her aunt about a part-time job. Meanwhile, Jun ran into his mom, who invited him to dinner at a fancy restaurant. He then remembered his dad had asked him to see his mom, as she always blamed everything on him. Jun then called his dad to reassure him not to worry and that he was doing everything right. John's mom and her younger son went to the store for snacks and unexpectedly ran into a young neighbor. A girl was standing at a stall selling meat and vegetable dumplings when someone asked her to watch over the sample table. The dumplings smelled amazing, so Sam gave a friend a sample, reminding her to eat slowly. They're hot. The woman loved the food and decided to bring some home for Chan before leaving. On her way out, a school security guard approached Sam. He lived nearby, but was surprised to see her there. He asked for a pack of dumplings, and she gave him 2, explaining that the store allowed her discretion to give them out in pairs. Sam also noticed some familiar older women and invited them to try the dumplings she'd cut open for extra flavor. Suddenly, a little girl silently tugged at Sam's skirt, but her face looked strangely familiar. Then, Mo rushed over. She had lost her little sister and was now scolding her for running off. But when she realized it was Sam working at the stall, she became even angrier and demanded her sister throw the dumpling away. She grabbed the child and ran off, refusing to breathe the same air as Sam. That evening, Ho begged his older brother, John, to eat the dumplings, saying they smelled incredible and telling him they were from a shopping trip with their mom. John was shocked Sam was working there, and when he took a bite, the taste truly amazed him. Their mom suddenly remembered the strange rumors about Sam, which bothered her. She noticed Sam's parents still hadn't shown up and started questioning her son about what he knew. Sam was thrilled to receive her pay in advance and took home a huge stack of dumplings. She felt like a real-life money magnet. Then she noticed Biao Jun looking a bit off. Sam was happy to run into him because she could finally repay him with the money she earned selling dumplings. She rushed towards him, but the packages of dumplings slid forward and Biao Jun ended up injured and on the ground. He fell hard, and she couldn't bring herself to ask if he was okay. Then his nose started bleeding again. She leaned down to check, but immediately decided to just dial 911 wait. He grabbed a pack of dumplings, swearing he was fine and that his stomachache was gone. Sam explained she was rushing to repay him. Biao Jun waved it off, saying he just turned too quickly. Then he asked about the dumplings, and she boasted they were earnings from a part-time job she just did. She just gotten paid and asked for his bank account information to return the money. But he insisted the dumplings were sufficient payment and grabbed a pack, walking off. On his way, he couldn't figure out how getting hit by frozen food cured his stomachache. The next morning, Sam found him at school and shoved an envelope at him, refusing to let him refuse. As soon as he took it, she grinned like a kid on Christmas morning, finally debt-free. Her flip-flop caught on something, and the entire toe section flew off towards Biao Jun, who caught it like a superhero. Sam stared at her shoe, wondering where the toe went. Biao Jun grinned triumphantly, the toe in his hand. She thanked him and tried to reattach it, but it was no use, so she decided to just leave it. Jun understood her predicament and pulled out a pair of slippers he'd been meaning to throw away from his locker, offering them to her. He said they were too small, but Sam's feet were almost the same size, and she was delighted when he told her to keep them permanently. Meanwhile, her old friends were trying to figure out why Sam was walking like that, with Lee Jur guessing she was broke. Pakyan disagreed. She'd read that the Sam group was still thriving in real estate. But Jur reminded them that Sam had been like this ever since her parents died, which was also when she cut ties with them. She couldn't understand how her friend was handling everything alone. Now they were right in front of her school. Jurian told everyone not to say anything to Tabin, but she hadn't planned on stirring up trouble anyway. Later, Sam ran into Chan's mom in the hallway, also taking out the trash, admitting it piled up quickly. The woman left silently, feeling proud of her neighbor, while the girl continued cleaning the hall. Outside, Sam once again helped the children, telling them not to run into the street and to only cross when the light was green. But the children were rude, snapping at her that they could cross anyway if there were no cars. Sam decided to correct them and make them listen, but they just made faces and called her ugly. Just then, Yoo Chan walked over, unaware that Sam was disciplining the students, and greeted them. But the boys not only ignored his greeting, but also insulted Chan, asking him who he thought he was. He then claimed he was dating the scary girl, but the kids decided he was her hostage. The light turned green, and the kids dashed across the road, telling the guy to run before she got him. It was a shame you couldn't beat up elementary school kids these days. And Sam was more curious about what his failed joke was supposed to mean. The guy apologized for it. He hadn't expected things to go that way. Honestly, he knew it wasn't funny, but Sam just felt hurt. She told Chan to stop messing around, but he swore again that he wasn't joking. He also mentioned that he actually liked Pajun more, although he hadn't quite figured out his feelings yet. She still didn't get it. Later, she went to check on her sapling. For some reason, the plant had withered, even though it had enough light and water. It didn't look like it would bear any fruit at all. The thought that her painstakingly dreamt of cherry basket might just be a dream made her incredibly sad. She was about to organize the envelopes when a gust of wind blew them everywhere. Sam couldn't understand why life was so cruel. The envelopes were sure to be ruined, so she lunged to catch them. She caught most of them. The last one got stuck on some low branches out of her reach. The boys passing by didn't know what the girl was doing, leaning out of the balcony like that was dangerous. Pajun was among them, and realizing she was in danger, he rushed to help. Sam didn't give up. She almost reached it, but lost her balance and fell from the second floor. Luckily, Jun rushed over just in time and caught her in his arms, though she was heavier than he expected. But he lost his balance and fell onto the grass, still holding her up so she wouldn't get hurt. His friends rushed to his side, hoping he was all right. But when Samai saw Jun, she immediately jumped away. She was panicked, having fallen hard, thinking he might have gotten hurt again because of her. He insisted he was fine, and Samai started thanking him, even though she knew she had done something stupid. He walked away with his friends, who were all crowding around him because of his heroic act. Samai also saw him as a hero. But then the wind scattered all her letters, and she realized all her efforts were in vain. That night, Jun couldn't sleep. He had a nightmare and woke up in the middle of the night. He was covered in cold sweat. The next morning, his friend saw the terrible dark circles under Jun's eyes, and Jun admitted he hadn't slept well because of a nightmare. He dreamt of little Samai in her giant slippers running around in his head all night. But he couldn't tell his friends that, only saying he had a headache. So he made him lie down and even patted his shoulder for Jun to rest. But Jun just turned him around, leaning on him like a tree, wanting a nap. History class was so boring that I dozed off and dreamed of things like rice cakes. She wanted to check the time, but found Jun looking at her, then quickly looking away. She thought he saw her drooling over the rice cake dream, and the guy just thought she might fall if she fell asleep, so he kept a close eye on her. Samai still felt embarrassed. She didn't understand why he kept staring at her like she was some kind of science textbook. A while later, the female students saw I actually picking up trash, but they thought she was just trying to impress them. They didn't understand how Chan could be friends with her, but now they just walked past her. Samai continued working, muttering under her breath when she saw the stuck chewing gum, wondering why anyone would do that. Suddenly, she overheard the same old tired lines. The girl was flirting. The boy said he already liked someone. It was Chan again. But the girl didn't believe it. She knew he'd been rejecting everyone, but this direct rejection was too much. She begged for a chance, telling him how popular she was, but Chan just apologized and refused again, which made her angry. Samai hid around the corner so Chan wouldn't see her, but he still caught a glimpse of her sticking up hair and called out to her. He had told her before that he was sincere, but somehow no one ever believed him. He admitted he'd spotted her hiding there a while ago. Samai swore she wasn't eavesdropping on purpose, but now she finally understood that rejecting someone was as hard as being rejected. Chan face-bombed internally for his loose lips. Samai thought he was about to cry, but he wasn't at all. Soon, she was running low on rice, and after checking other expenses, she found she only had enough money left to buy a little more. On her way to the store, Sam ran into some familiar ladies who, as usual, inquired about her business and praised her diligence. An elderly woman, also as usual, offered her a steaming hot bun. Then, Sam spotted a familiar figure in the distance. His back was mostly turned to her as he squinted at his phone, seemingly oblivious to her presence. She quickly ducked out of sight, not wanting to be recognized, her mind racing with confusion as to why the company lawyer would be here. Sam knew her uncle might be nearby, and her legs turned to jelly again. Her vision blurred for a second, but she forced herself to move, only to bump into someone's coat. She mumbled an apology without looking up, then realized she could barely breathe. It was Pudgeon. He caught her as she trembled, seeing the same terrified look in her eyes as the last time she'd hidden behind him. Sam froze when she saw Pudgeon, so he took her hand, knowing she needed support. The lawyer Sam had seen was actually Pudgeon's father. He saw his son with the girl, but couldn't make out her face. The boy glanced back at his father, who was waving him over, but Pudgeon just kept walking, pulling the girl along. Once outside, she stopped, assuring him she felt better, then realized how far they'd walked. Her hand still trembled like a broken branch, so she started tapping her head, trying to snap herself out of it. It dawned on her that she'd been wrong about her uncle, but now she wasn't sure what was wrong with her. Pudgeon caught her wrist, telling her not to be so hard on herself. She froze, completely taken aback by the gesture. The sun was shining on her face, and Pudgeon shielded her eyes with his palm, blocking the harsh sunlight. His father went to his dinner engagement, assuming the girl with his son was Sam. Jun asked Sam if she had a headache and suggested she see a doctor for a checkup. The doctor diagnosed her with anxiety, possibly caused by stress or perhaps with no clear cause. He explained that when the feeling of fear is extremely strong, the tension in the muscles throughout your body can make you unable to move. The girl admitted she only slept 3 to 4 hours a night, which the doctor said was not enough. Sam apologized to the doctor, an old friend she hadn't seen in years, not wanting to bother him. But the doctor felt guilty himself for not taking better care of his deceased friend's daughter. He told Sam to relax, rest more, and make sure to sleep, but she couldn't. She couldn't afford to sleep more. There was too much work. Even working all night wasn't enough. That evening, Jun called Sean, saying he hadn't been able to have dinner with his father because he'd run into Sam on the way. Sean was curious about what they did. Jun shrugged it off, saying it was just a chance encounter. Sam reminisced about high school, how her group of friends practically doted on her, and the boys did too. Some boys were even afraid to ask for her number, knowing she had a real bad boy for a boyfriend at the time. Back then, Sam was really popular. Everyone envied her, but still respected her. Things seemed very different now. She didn't seem like her old self anymore, almost the complete opposite. Even her hair was a mess, and the food she'd left out was still warm, almost burning her hand in the morning. Sam cleaned the hall, then grabbed a trash picker and headed towards the school. The weather was nice, and as she picked up trash, John saw her while passing by on the bus. The girl found some cash in the middle of the road, but didn't know whose it was or how to find the owner. John called out to her, inviting her to walk to school together, but she decided to ask her friends what to do with the money first. Sam thought about turning it into the police, even though they probably wouldn't be able to find the owner since there was no name on the bills. The boy just laughed, confirming it would be impossible to find the owner, so she could keep it. Sam was a bit flustered. She'd found loose change before, but this was a considerable amount. She nonchalantly stuffed the money in her pocket, and Sean found it amusing watching her and Jun. Meanwhile, Jun was trying to figure out why Sam had been so panicked. As there was nothing scary there, nothing about the place could explain that kind of reaction. So Jun even speculated about the supernatural. His thoughts were interrupted by Lee Shur-yun, an 11th grader, who wanted his Instagram handle to message him. He didn't catch what she said at first and asked again, and she immediately blushed, realizing he had already rejected her with just a look. Sam had already arrived in the classroom, folding envelopes incessantly until Jun walked in. She even turned away from the window, hoping he wouldn't come over, but Jun thought she was talking to a ghost. The boy almost believed she saw a ghost, but then dismissed the idea as silly. Ghosts shouldn't be at school. Just as Jun arrived, Chan showed up too, curious why Sam was working part-time again today. Jun jumped, startled by Chan's sudden appearance, having just been thinking about ghosts, prompting him to give a warning next time. Chan admitted high schoolers were bothering him, which is why he came here. 4 of them had forced him to dance. Then, Chan noticed that Sam's slippers were too big, and she explained where they came from. Jun admitted that was indeed the case. He had a spare pair he never wore, and they came in handy. John was still worried about whether the shoes were comfortable, as she kept slipping while walking, but she assured him everything was fine. After class, Sam saw there would be a big sale soon, and she really wanted the cheap eggs. While taking out the trash, she got distracted by her phone and didn't notice someone had set a trap around the corner. Sam immediately fell flat on her face, and Mo and her friends giggled at her. They hurled insults, mocked her hair, and complained that no one else had seen the poor girl's embarrassing fall. They were truly annoyed they forgot to record it and begged Sam to do it again. Without saying a word, she dusted herself off, then grabbed the bucket, leaving the bullies bewildered as they tried to figure out what she would do next. Sam put the trash can over Mo's head and knocked it hard. Mo's friends immediately gagged. It was the vomit bucket everyone used. Mo ripped it off and started screaming and cursing, then grabbed Sam's hair, roaring that she was in big trouble now and wouldn't get away with it. Sam realized the bully intended to kill her, but didn't believe someone like her had the guts, and laughed. A teacher caught them fighting and punished the main participants by making them clean the staff room windows. Some of her friends came over, heard about her punishment, and reminded her it was time to spend her allowance. After her friends left, Mo continued working, but Sam noticed she was using too many paper towels. Sam told her she could rinse and reuse them, then sent her to the sink to wash them. While walking, Jun asked Sean if he believed in ghosts, but Sean was more interested in aliens. Jun admitted he'd been thinking lately that ghosts might be real. Then he thought of Sam, but then clammed up. His friend urged him to continue, but he retorted that Sean did that all the time too, saying he just didn't want to talk about things that didn't concern him. But Jun was clearly sulking. Sean noticed that Sam had been coming up in their conversations a lot recently. It was annoying him. After all, Jun used to completely ignore other people. He didn't even care about his middle school classmates. Suddenly, Jun ran off, with John shouting after him, asking where he was going. But he didn't answer. Jun rushed to the riverbank, grabbed Sam's backpack, pulled her back, and warned her it was very dangerous there. Barefoot, she explained she just wanted to go into the water to pick up some trash. John appeared, immediately understood the situation, and added that the river was actually very deep and dangerous. Sammy hesitated, still considering whether to go in. The river water was icy cold, so she was wavering. As she was thinking, she heard a strange noise, and then Jun rushed towards her and pulled her back from the edge. She knew he was terrified because she had done similar foolish things before, just like this time. Sam promised to be more careful. She told Jun not to be so uptight. She wasn't a complete idiot. Later, Chan tried to figure out what was going on with Sam. He realized he didn't know much about his friend. That evening, Sam stopped by to help his mom make knife-cut noodles. When he went into the kitchen to check on them, his mom told the girl to relax with Chan, saying it was almost ready. Chan offered to show her his room, and she saw he had a lot of trophies from his childhood. Sam lost her balance while reaching for something on the top shelf, but Chan caught her in time. Just as he steadied his neighbor from behind, his mom walked in and called them to dinner. The woman paused, then urged them to hurry before the food got cold. The students knew it looked strange, but Chan explained to Sam that his mom knew his big secret. He clarified that the secret was that he liked Jun, so she wouldn't get any strange ideas about his neighbor. Later, Sam found out that a woman no longer had any more part-time work for her, but she thanked her anyway. She remembered the first time she delivered the envelopes, knowing almost all of them were flawed, and felt stressed about it. But the woman knew the girl needed money and gave her another chance. Sam knew the woman was planning to move to the United States, just not so soon, and it made her a little sad. But the woman didn't just give her the whole school uniform as a reward. She added new clothes and shoes as well. When Sam was broke, this woman took her in. Now the girl was barely scraping by. She entered a raffle and won nothing, using up all her points, though she still had a few coupons. But the apartment bills weren't paid, so she immediately turned off all the lights and started thinking. Meanwhile, at the office, they were discussing major changes due to a change in chairman. The new boss reminded the team that they were the ones who asked for his time, but now they were going on and on. Then he said he had another important meeting and told them to get out, calling them nothing but a thorn in his side. Employee Jean reported that the former chairman's residence was spotless, everything in perfect order. His colleague noticed he'd been talking to the boss, but didn't understand why the chairman hadn't confirmed if Sammi was back yet. But the girl wasn't giving up. She handed out her homemade business cards, praying someone would give her a side hustle. Sammi was determined to find a way to make money and overcome any obstacles in her path. She forged ahead, establishing her own company, Sam Thunder Solo, but knew she couldn't rush things. This was just the beginning. As she took the elevator home, she ran into Jun, knowing he was there to hang out with Chan and unwind. Suddenly, strange noises started. Samai admitted that the elevator sometimes flickered and crackled, and once even went completely dark in the middle of the night. She wondered aloud if ghosts really stayed in elevators, which immediately made Jun uneasy. Samai noticed the car sway slightly, as if something heavy was on top, then added that it was probably just a ghost. Jun was already sweating, muttering to himself that ghosts didn't exist. Then, without warning, the elevator lights went out. The elevator also creaked to a halt. Samai didn't understand why this was happening. It had never happened before. She started calling a maintenance worker, but no one answered. Then came a sound like a little girl crying. She shone her phone's flashlight on Jun and saw that his face was pale. He insisted he was fine, then asked if she could see anyone, but she didn't understand what he meant. Jun's state felt familiar to Samai. She guessed he had anxiety, just like her. Jun knew they were trapped. He took out his phone to call for emergency help. Just then, worried about him, Samai stepped forward and reached out her hand to him, just like he had done for her before. Jun, fighting his fear, refused, still convinced that ghosts weren't real. So Samai just grabbed his hand and rubbed it quickly, hoping to calm him down. She told him, "Deep breaths. Exhale. Don't be nervous. I'm here." She shared how she dealt with her panic attacks, telling him they could get through this, so he could too. Just as he was starting to understand, the elevator lurched again, the lights flickered back on, and the car started moving. Upwards. Samai told Jun to let her know if he couldn't handle it. She had someone else who could help. Jun tried to explain she had it all wrong. The real problem was something else, and he was now convinced ghosts were nonsense. He understood now. Samai's talk in the elevator and her strange behavior were just side effects of her anxiety. The girl started economizing on everything, even using the water she saved after washing dishes to rinse her sneakers. She even tried on the new sneakers her aunt had given her, but hesitated to accept such an expensive gift. The school uniform and sweatpants were brand new. Perfect. Before dark, Samai decided to continue revising her business cards, striving for more energy and cost savings. While working, her thoughts kept circling back. Why had she grabbed Jun's hand in the elevator? Now at school, she had nothing to do, whereas before she was always busy between classes, always having some work. A classmate caught up to her, saying the security guard needed help cleaning out the old storage room. Happy to have something to do, she planned to check on her cherry tree after finishing the tidying. She reached the storage room and called out for the security guard, but no one was around. Then, someone yanked her from behind. The door slammed shut, and she was locked inside by Mo-A, the prankster. Although Mo-A's friends had warned her against it, reminding her that class was almost over and hoping she'd open the door later. That didn't happen. After class, Mo-A's friends wanted to talk her into letting Samai out, as the storage room was disused, but they decided it was best not to push her. Meanwhile, Jun couldn't find Samai and couldn't reach her by phone. She had left it in her school bag. Sean noticed his friend Jun was distraught and learned the whole story. Samai had missed the last class, her backpack was still in the classroom, and the teacher had no idea where she was. There were no classes scheduled then, and all this made Jun feel very uneasy. Then Sean suddenly remembered he'd overheard someone gossiping about a person being locked in the abandoned storage room. He told Jun, and the two immediately set off, thinking their friend might be in trouble. While they frantically searched, Samai was berating herself for leaving her phone in her bag. She still hoped the security guard would come tomorrow. Knowing she might be trapped all night, she started making a makeshift bed out of whatever she could find. Suddenly, she heard the door creak open. Jun and Sean ran in, both wide-eyed and relieved. Samai just blinked and asked how they found her. Jun stepped closer, his jaw tight. He shoved a paper bag at her and told her to breathe into it. He already knew how much this place affected her. He also told her to lean back so her lungs could work better, then urged her to take another deep breath. Bae was essentially teaching her basic first aid, hoping she'd feel better. John was still confused about the bag, but then Samai suddenly screamed and nearly fainted. She then said she wasn't actually that scared. She had made herself a little nest, but the boys were still freaked out. Chan asked his friend why he was carrying around that weird paper bag. The girl admitted to having anxiety attacks, sometimes unable to even breathe or move. John had encountered Jun during a few of her panic attacks, so he figured she might run away again. John told the girl, if she got into trouble again, not to try to handle it alone and to stop hiding things from them. However, Mo was restless. Late at night, she disguised herself and snuck out. She wasn't planning on coming back. Her mom didn't stop her, just told her to play with her sister when she returned, saying she was busy outside. Mo knew she had to climb the fence and that she might get caught, but something had been bothering her. She still didn't understand why Semi attacked her, but now she was heading towards the school. The school at night was terrifying. Mo approached the storage room, quietly pushed the door open, and then ran away like a thief. Afraid of being discovered, she hid in a corner and observed, waiting for Semi to come out, but no one left the storage room. Mo felt that something bad might have happened, so she quietly approached with a flashlight. The girl was shocked to find it empty. Then she ran as fast as she could. Meanwhile, Semi was wondering why the garbage was piling up, but no one had called her to do the job. She still went out to earn steps when a dark car stopped beside her. Her uncle was in the car. She shrugged and got in, thinking how bad could it be. As her legal guardian, her uncle couldn't ignore what had happened any longer. Rumors might spread. He told his niece that if she was going to stay here, she needed to remember her parents. She needed to pull herself together. After the accident, Semi hadn't left her room for days, just crying alone inside. When she didn't even answer the door, the staff started to worry. They thought she might have fainted, so they kicked the door open and saw Semi had cut off her beautiful long hair, but she still didn't say a word. Now, her uncle dropped her off at her residence, letting her out in front of the building and leaving. Later, she realized that she hadn't even trembled during the whole ordeal. In class, the girls noticed Semi started sleeping more, and they realized she wasn't working her part-time job anymore. They had a lab class next, but decided not to wake her. They were also worried she might be hungry. The girls started taking candy bars and sandwiches out of their backpacks, and then left, leaving it all for Semi. When everyone had left, Semi woke up alone in the classroom and saw a pile of snacks on the table, not knowing where they came from. Jun came over and explained that all the snacks were from her classmates, but Semi couldn't believe it. There were so many snacks. Jun also reminded her friend that their fourth period was science and they needed to go to the lab. Today, Semi started packing up quickly, remembering the teacher's warning that if they were late, they have to stand in the hallway as punishment. Then she went out, planning to grab a candy bar on the way. Meanwhile, Jun didn't seem to be in any hurry to go to class. Outside, students noticed a few girls who looked tough, wondering which school they were from. Pak Kyung and Lee Ju were waiting by the school, but were too afraid to ask around, worried Semi might hear about it. Just as they were at a loss, Semi walked over and told them to follow her. The girls explained that they came because they knew she was hiding and they wanted an answer. Semi just apologized, saying she had nothing to say, only admitting that she was foolish to get herself into this mess. Then she admitted that she missed them too, but she couldn't go back to the way she was before. With that, she left. The girls thought she was being selfish. Gosh, they were worried sick. Semi walked toward the market, where a vendor asked her to help watch his stall sometimes. Meanwhile, John and Jun were sulking over their lost game. Pooh's team was supposed to be invincible, but the other team was on a whole other level. Then they heard Semi refuse to sell cigarettes to a guy who had forgotten his ID. The guy got agitated and started cursing at her, demanding she hand over a pack. She raised her hand and signaled to the approaching police officers, letting them know she needed help. The jerk didn't know how the police could have arrived so quickly, but he ran away like a shot. Then Chan and Jun walked over. They admitted they had been there for a while and were about to jump in if the police hadn't shown up. Semi thanked them, and then they went to eat noodles together, but Chan accidentally splashed the broth all over his face. John helped his friend clean up, while Semi watched the whole thing. Chan was curious why. Sam, I had a speed dial for the police on her phone. She explained that they had handled her theft case. John wasn't so sure. He had just overheard them talking about a theft case near the store and realized it was her place that had been robbed. Chan knew the girl had been through a lot and was used to handling everything on her own. Meanwhile, Sam earned her pay and felt good knowing she could save up for her utility bills. John also admitted to his friend that he couldn't take his eyes off Sam, worried something might happen to her. He knew he should do something instead of just standing by, but he couldn't explain why. Later, though, he came up with an analogy like a child standing at the edge of a bridge. You just can't walk away. That evening, Chan dragged himself home, exhausted and ready for bed, when his younger brother begged him to play. The older brother suddenly remembered his friend, P, once saving a kitten and its mother and taking them to the vet. His brother realized John was a good person, so Chan agreed to play Dr. Mario with him. Meanwhile, John confessed to his father that he didn't want to see his mother again, but his father insisted, saying she blamed everything on him. He knew his father wanted them to get along, but forcing a meeting wasn't the solution. Sam wanted to play her cassette tape again, but it ended up ruined, leaving her devastated. She couldn't understand what was happening. First, her sprouts died, then her tape broke, and now she was starving. Her relatives were discussing how Sam had been rebellious, and they couldn't do anything about it. Her aunt's other niece was behaving the same way, as if both of them had become mute after the accident. The woman completely understood Sam, because Sam saw them as her parents, and they had a very good relationship. Back then, Sam suffered the most because some guy kept insisting it was all her fault. That night, she had another nightmare, one without her parents. She thought they must hate her. Waking up, she realized she had overslept. She rushed out of her room and bumped into John in the hallway. They ran together towards the bus that had just arrived, but Sam suddenly decided to walk, shocking Chan. He yelled that she'd definitely be late if she ran. Guessing she didn't have money for the fare, he offered to pay for both of them. After they sat down, Sam promised to pay him back, but Chan waved it off, saying they were friends. It was fine. He was exhausted from staying up late playing with his brother. He knew he'd definitely fall asleep in math class. He even considered napping on the bus, but noticed his girlfriend was already asleep. Midway, the bus jolted, jarring her, but even that didn't wake her. In class, Sam's seat remained empty. No one knew if she was even coming. After class, Jun ran into one of John's classmates, who said John hadn't shown up either. It turned out they both slept so soundly on the bus that the driver had to wake them at the terminal. Later, the two students discovered a long gap between return trips. The next bus wouldn't come for a while. Chan decided to call their homeroom teacher, just as the driver came over and offered them hot cocoa. Later, Chan's teacher asked for a photo, and Sam wanted to chat with the bus driver. The school thought they had eloped, creating quite a stir, but the two kids had actually had a lot of fun. Out of nowhere, the girl spotted a frog. She had no idea how it got there, but she couldn't resist touching it. As soon as she touched its skin, the frog leaped, landing right on Chan's nose. Sam doubled over with laughter, while Chan freaked out, shrieking for the slimy thing to get off him. The frog hopped away, but the girl continued giggling, the image of Chan screaming like a little girl still fresh in her mind. Sam realized he hated frogs and apologized, feeling a little bad, but he didn't seem angry. Then, she noticed the frog was about to jump at her, so she caught it mid-air and held it up to Chan. Chan froze, and Sam told him to look, saying it was just a cute little thing. Sam released the frog just as the driver appeared, announcing they were about to leave. Both students agreed to stay awake this time. The girl assured her friend she'd keep her eyes peeled so Chan could trust her and take a short nap. Chan didn't take the chance, which was wise, as Sam almost immediately fell asleep again. Later, Chan complained to Jun about enduring a 3-hour bumpy ride and a scolding from his teacher, his brain now mush. He hoped Sam hadn't had it too bad and finally understood what Jun meant about the girl. She stood precariously on the bridge, doing nothing, yet as long as she was there, he'd start worrying about her. Chan had never really thought about it before, but he didn't know how to explain it and just told his friend to forget it. Sam was happy her small business was picking up. Now she could actually afford a rent. But first, she wanted to pay Chan back. She didn't have his car number, and she also needed garbage bags. Later, she ran into Jun and explained what had happened with Chan on the bus to school. In class, a student asked her to check the app where there was another school announcement. The kid was about to leave when he stepped on a pencil and slipped, crashing straight into Sam. He scrambled up, explaining that he'd slipped, then realized his impact had knocked Sam into Paijin. Pak-Yoon and Riju were talking about how much Sam had changed, reminiscing about the old times they spent together. Then Taebin walked over, and they realized he'd overheard part of their conversation. He quickly guessed they had run into Sam. The girls insisted that if that were the case, they would have told him immediately. He seemed hurt, reminding them that he was going crazy over this, unable to even sleep. He then pleaded with them to let him know the moment they heard anything. Ju-Yoon reminded him that pining after Sam didn't make him her boyfriend, especially since she didn't even look at him twice. The girls were curious if Taebin had ever held her hand, and he admitted they had even kissed. Riju didn't believe him, saying he was just a boyfriend in name only, despite having a ton of girls fawning over him. The girls were annoyed by his behavior, as he always coasted through life on his pretty face. Pak-Yoon was furious, suggesting they kill him for daring to touch Sam's lips. The student who bumped into Sam kept apologizing, but Biao Jun assured him everything was fine. Sam assured them she was okay, and then Biao Jun asked what had happened with Yoo Chan that morning. He said his friend was acting strange, and then Sam explained that the guy had been startled by a frog. Sam thought the frog was cute and even took a picture before letting it go. She showed the picture to Biao Jun. He didn't want to see it at first, but Sam had already opened the photo and repeated how cute the frog was. John, on his way to class, started scratching, and his classmates thought it was a mosquito bite, but John wasn't sure himself. Biao Jun looked at the picture and admitted the creature was cute. Sam noticed her friend smiling and realized he liked frogs. After school, Sam overheard Mo talking about how her little sister had run away from daycare, that she had already called the police. Mo was frantic after her sister's disappearance, and when she saw Sam, she ran off even more angrily. Sam couldn't just stand by and watch, so she ran off to look for the girl too, thinking a child would go somewhere noticeable. Meanwhile, Mo was searching and almost bumped into a man. Despite being a jerk, she loved her sister and was worried sick. She searched desperately late into the night and then heard Sam's voice again, ready to lash out at her. But standing next to Sam was her little sister. Sam had found her under the bridge by the river. Mo wanted to take her sister away, but the child just clung tightly to her rescuer, refusing to budge. John ran into his mother, who couldn't understand why seeing her twice a month was such a painful ordeal. She said he was breaking her heart, and no matter where she went, she always thought of him. Still, she understood. He had every right to be angry, as she had abandoned him to become someone else's mother. The boy suddenly felt a pang of heartache and just said goodbye. On her way home, Sam realized she had scraped her hand while looking for the child, having fallen and grazed it while running. She knew she should go to the pharmacy, but didn't want to spend the money, until Biao Jun ran into her again. He saw the wound, grabbed her hand, and practically dragged her into the pharmacy, paying with his own card. Sam thanked him and swore she would transfer the money back to him, despite Biao Jun's constant waving her off. Sam asked for his bank account number, but the guy changed the subject and asked for her phone number instead. Biao Jun had been an exceptional child since he was young, able to get up, dress himself, and eat with gusto, much to his mother's delight. But he never felt like a genius. He felt trapped, unable to do anything, just wanting someone to take care of. Now, he was asking Sam for a number, and she assumed he meant her bank information, but he wanted her phone number. Sam was caught off guard, but Biao Jun shrugged and said he wanted to call a friend. He heard about a good deal, and Biao Jun thought they could go check it out together. Sam nodded, happy to split the shopping costs again. Back home, Biao Jun was already regretting asking for a number, and to make matters worse, he had blurted out something about a buy one get one free sale, like a complete idiot. His dad overheard him muttering and assumed there was a sale at the supermarket, but Biao Jun insisted there wasn't any sale. Sam went about her business, taking out the trash, while the mean girls continued to mock her. One of Mo's friends was about to prank Sam again, but Kim and Mo suddenly stopped her, telling her not to. Her friends were stunned, but Kim and Mo just told them to leave Sam alone. Sam walked past them. She was glad they didn't bother her, but the atmosphere behind her felt strange. Chan walked in and asked Biao Jun for his math textbook, then noticed their friend wasn't at her desk. Biao Jun said she had gone to take out the trash and would be back soon. John thought maybe they should come back later. Chan didn't understand why his friend would say that. John explained that he just wanted to see his girlfriend. Chan got the book, even surprised that it looked brand new. Then he unexpectedly found an IOU from Sam inside. Biao Jun admitted that Sam had already paid him back, but Chan didn't understand why he still kept the IOU. Biao Jun swore he just stuck in the book and forgot about it. Just then, their friend returned to the classroom. She muttered under her breath, complaining about people spitting in the trash can and the gum stuck all over the floor. John returned to the classroom, but he couldn't figure out why he was so upset and yet so excited. Meanwhile, Sam's relative asked Jin's secretary where I lived, wanting to contact her, but he didn't give the address, knowing they wouldn't be able to find the girl afterward. Just then, the front door suddenly opened. Both were startled when Samai walked in, but she held up a hand, telling them to stay calm. She explained she needed to grab something and would leave immediately, telling everyone to stay put. Her relative noticed how exhausted Sam looked. She burst into tears, still not understanding why I had come. Biao Jun and Sean went out for dinner, and Biao Jun mentioned that Samai had given him cash for the trip, not wanting to owe a single cent. Po received a text from Samai. Chan raised an eyebrow. How did you get her number? Biao Jun shrugged. I just asked. They were happy to have exchanged numbers, and now she'd sent him a picture of a promotional flyer. At the store, she saw Taeben. Friend had begged him not to leave. Girls were always chasing after him. At that time, Biao Jun and Sean were also on their way back, but Biao Jun had been silent the entire time. This irritated his friend Po. He finally snapped, "This might seem obvious, but it's not that simple." Elsewhere, John was distraught. He blurted out, "I have something to tell you." But Po shook his head. "Don't," Biao Jun cut in. "Think it through. Only say it when it feels right." John backed down. Taeben said goodbye, told them to text him later, and turned to leave, but froze when he saw a familiar girl. Semi had already turned around, about to run before he could catch up to her. Biao Jun and Sean were halfway across the street when Sam suddenly darted towards them. The girl saw them too, silently praying they would save her, and in a flash, she ducked behind Po. Semi told the guys to keep walking like she wasn't there, and they did, right until Taeben passed by. He just wanted to see her face, but instead, he watched her disappear with a group of handsome guys. Semi knew this guy would go crazy if he got angry, and if he caught her, it would be a one-way ticket to hell. Later, John asked her why she was hiding from that guy. Biao Jun joked that she should wear a hoodie to hide. Semi didn't want to reveal the truth, only saying he was an old acquaintance she didn't want anything to do with anymore. Back home, she sorted through the videotapes she'd retrieved from her previous house, but most of them were blank. She planned to play them all later, but for now, she focused on her business cards, though one tape was still playing in the background. During the day, she helped the security guard pull weeds, and he appreciated the students' hard work. Soon, she'd saved enough money to hit the grocery store for discounted items. Chan, on his way to the library to return books, overheard her muttering about the business cards. She handed him one, and he finally understood why she kept changing jobs. Semi liked to stay busy. It meant no strange thoughts could sneak in her head. John, seeing the phone number on the card, asked if he could occasionally text her chat. She agreed. Then John saved her number in his phone and snickered that Biao Jun didn't have this kind of business card. But he remembered his friend's advice and felt he might be onto something, though it could also just be a coincidence. Chan ran into him at the gym, saying it annoyed him how Biao Jun was always right, and that Yin said whatever he wanted and Po couldn't stop him. Biao Jun didn't argue, but Yin said his face was filled with anger. It felt strange. Yin returned home, and his mom asked him to buy Lorano food and milk, so he went back to the store. Passing by Sammy's place, he realized they lived close, but saw each other far less than he thought. Walking towards the elevator, he suddenly heard a strange and suspicious sound coming from Sammy's apartment. Chan knew she usually handled everything herself, but clearly, something bad was happening. Sammy was definitely not okay. She suddenly felt incredibly ill, almost faint. She crumpled to the floor, gasping for breath, the air feeling like it was crushing her chest. Sammy had absolutely no idea why this was happening. Her neighbor, hearing the cries from her apartment, decided to check on her. He tried calling her, but she didn't answer, which made Chan even more panicked. Then he rang her doorbell repeatedly, but there was no response for a long time. Sammy saw her neighbor calling, but she was too unwell, dizzy, and lightheaded, unable to even hold her phone. Just then, Biao Jun texted, asking if she'd bought the coupons. She had to pull herself together now. She groaned, slumping against the wall. She gasped, taking steady, deep breaths, slowly starting to feel normal again. But the heaviness remained. She didn't want to talk to anyone, but her phone kept ringing. John sat outside her door, silently pleading for her to answer. He hadn't known the girl for long, but for some reason, he was incredibly worried, afraid something had happened to her. For a moment, he almost called emergency services, but just then, the door behind him swung open. Sammy stepped into the hallway and was surprised to see her neighbor slumped on the doorstep. She had been about to go to his place to ask why he had called so many times. Clearly, she was lying. The guy didn't answer right away. He stood up first, then leaned against the wall beside her, blocking her path, and started bombarding her with questions. He glared at her, slightly annoyed, demanding to know why she hadn't answered him. He'd been calling and knocking for ages. Semi simply apologized, saying she'd been fast asleep and hadn't heard him. She swore she hadn't screamed. Maybe John had just imagined it. After a pause, he relented. It had only been a muffled yell. Maybe he really had misheard. He knew instantly that she was lying. Her puffy, red eyes gave her away. Seeing her like that, he wanted to give her a friendly hug. Meanwhile, Taeben ran into Ju Yoon and Park Young, asking if they knew the person with the triangular hairstyle. The girls understood what he meant, but they hesitated, as if they were in some kind of trouble. But he kept pressing, so they guessed he was having some crazy delusion from staying up all night playing games. They told him to stop messing around, get some rest, and focus on his exams. Realizing he wouldn't get anything out of these two, Taben moved on, heading straight for the school the girl he'd been chasing might attend, for some reason. Her hairstyle kept haunting him, like some invisible force was pulling him there. Suddenly, a man stopped him, offering a business card, wanting to scout him as a model. But Taben refused. Sometimes, he hated being noticed for his looks. Right now, he had only one thing on his mind. He was obsessed with that triangular hairstyle. Then, he saw her up ahead. There was no mistaking that unique hairstyle. This was his chance to see her face. Taben quickened his pace, determined not to lose her again, but someone zoomed past, completely blocking his view. It was Biao Jun. As he turned towards Taben, the guy remembered how stunned he'd been by his handsome features when they first met. He was hurrying to meet Sam I. They had plans to buy discounted eggs together. Taben realized the girl had just turned around, but this handsome guy's broad back completely obscured his view, as if he were purposely shielding the whole scene. Honestly, it pissed him off. Taben figured this was probably the guy the stranger had mentioned, the one connected to Triangle Head. Best to take a step back and avoid any further complications. As he walked away, Biao Jun told his friend he'd just seen the guy she'd been avoiding lately. Semi realized she'd almost bumped into him and nearly fainted from fright. Even though Biao Jun told her to relax, the guy was gone after all. She was already in full panic mode. She couldn't understand why Taben was chasing her everywhere, as if he knew something. From her reaction, Biao Jun knew his classmate must know the strange guy. She remembered back in middle school, Taben and his friends would often gossip about her behind her back, constantly staring but never actually approaching, a total long-distance stalker. Once, she dropped her pen, and Taben picked it up, even wiping it on his clothes. But back then, she was incredibly self-centered and told him to throw it away. She didn't want anything of his. From an outsider's perspective, it was a humiliating experience for Taben. He later overheard her telling her friends he'd probably keep the pen like it was some big deal. What an idiot. But right then, something shifted within Taben. Meanwhile, Biao Jun kept pressing Sam I about where she knew the guy she'd been avoiding. He noticed something was bothering her and asked her to open up. For a moment, she almost blurted it out, but she remained silent, unsure if he would understand. Meanwhile, her uncle thought about the accident report again, the one about Sam I's parents' death. They had been on the phone talking about their daughter when the crash happened, but they hid that fact from the media. At this moment, he couldn't help but think about the girl who had cut ties with her family and was struggling to survive on her own. He had hated her then, blaming her for that horrible accident. He lost control, letting his emotions take over. From then on, his insomnia began, and it continued to this day. Medication didn't help. He didn't even take it regularly. His panic attacks were just as bad. He hated the kid, but he also felt sorry for her. Meanwhile, when Biao Jun admitted he wanted to protect her, the girl was taken aback. But she quickly recovered, telling him she could handle it. She was strong enough to take care of herself. The guy was irrelevant. Biao Jun felt he couldn't convince her to open up right now, so he suggested they head to the store. The discounted eggs were waiting. The students remembered the last time Sam I failed to get a single egg. Last time, Biao snatched the last bag, but this time she got her own. Mo was with her sister, Mo Hee, who was trying to sketch Sam I. She barely heard her sister ask if she remembered the girl who had sought her out, the one who even grabbed her apron at the store. Now Mo was trying to figure out what was so appealing about that girl, since there wasn't anything special about her. Moa finally got her answer. Her sister thought the girl was hot, which Moa found incredibly weird. Semi wasn't pretty at all. Moa thought she was a total nerd with ugly nails. But that was just her opinion. Samai had her own things to deal with. She had listened to most of the tapes she'd been given, but most were blank, and the others were some boring junk that annoyed the hell out of her. She still had one cassette left, and during her work break, she decided to listen to what was on it. She sat down by the roadside, put on her headphones, and pressed play. But her hopes were dashed. It was another blank tape. Samai was annoyed. She angrily grabbed a stick and swatted at some passing trash, as if it were the source of all her misfortune. But just then, she saw Biao Jun across the street meeting a classmate who decided to introduce him to Kim Hami, who was considered a beauty and even looked like a model. She was also nearby, but Jun wasn't interested in this matchmaking. His friend didn't give up, though, because Biao Jun had become very popular and many girls dreamed of meeting him. Semi clearly heard their conversation about what girls would do to meet Jun. Suddenly, Biao Jun announced that he had already found a girl he liked spending time with. He caught sight of Sam I sitting proudly alone out of the corner of his eye and headed towards her, leaving his annoying friend behind. He was curious about what she was doing and politely asked how she was doing. Then he reminded her that class was about to start and suggested they go back together. Meanwhile, Park Hyun and another friend were discussing Taevan, wondering why he was so obsessed with her. They even thought that if he saw what she looked like now, he would stop pursuing her. She herself also noticed that Sami had skin problems, probably because she had stopped using her face cream. Those girls just didn't understand that she had changed her lifestyle and had a lot of work to do now. At another part-time job, a woman noticed her chapped lips and suggested she put on some lip balm. Sami understood that she wasn't getting enough sleep because of work and felt very tired. She should have listened to her uncle and taken some medicine. Suddenly, her head started to spin, and everything in front of her became blurry. She was standing on a ladder, organizing stock at the time, and almost felt like a sack of potatoes. Because of a sudden dizziness, but before she hit the ground, someone grabbed her from behind and pulled her back. Her rescuer was Chan again, who told her not to push herself too hard. Sami was about to thank him for always being there when she needed him, but she was interrupted. Taevan was at the checkout, demanding his items be scanned. He stood there, his face cold as ice, like a random passerby buying something. He didn't even flinch, as if he wasn't in a hurry to get revenge on the girl with the triangular hairstyle. However, Chan immediately recognized that this was the guy his friend had been avoiding for days. But since Sami was on cashier duty, she couldn't avoid this customer, even though her brain was screaming at her to run. She went to the cash register, her face like a constipated raccoon, and rang up the items as if they were cursed. Taevan took his receipt, calm as a monk, acting as if he hadn't seen his soulmate at all. Then he walked out. After he left, Sami exhaled like a deflated balloon, wondering where that weirdo had come from, but relieved he hadn't recognized her, because if he had, Taevan wouldn't have just slipped away like a ghost. Meanwhile, Chan was already questioning her 100% sure she knew who that guy was. She suddenly realized that even if she hadn't been disguised while handing over the items, Taevan might not have recognized her. But she still didn't know how to explain that incident and her strange behavior to her friend. Taevan walked down the street at his own pace. He was lost in thought. Several girls, captivated by his looks, ran up to him asking for his phone number or Instagram handle, but the dark-haired hunk just brushed them off rudely, not even turning to look at them. The girls were shocked by his behavior, although they should have expected it from a handsome guy like him. And he couldn't stop thinking about Sami. He had fallen in love with her at first sight and then spread rumors that they were a couple, so he was considered her boyfriend. But even after he claimed they had kissed, most people still didn't believe it. Eventually, Sami admitted to Chan that the guy was an old friend of hers. She recently said she didn't know him or his friends, which shocked him, but she had her reasons. John decided not to press her further and went home, where his younger brother was waiting for him. Meanwhile, the girl went to see her doctor, who told her to continue taking her medication to avoid seizures. She had spent almost all her money on the medication, but she didn't want any accidents. On the other hand, she had to work harder to earn money. Just then, a message popped up requesting her help, and Sami immediately rushed to the address. The next day, she felt exhausted from working 2 part-time jobs. She needed to pay for her medication, which was making her extremely drowsy. Not only that, but when Biao Jun walked in and plopped down next to her, she didn't even notice him at first. He called her by her first name, without her surname, for the first time since they became friends. But Sami was more confused by the way he stared at her and pointed at her lips. It turned out that blood was seeping from the corners of her mouth due to chapped lips. Panicked, she quickly covered her mouth with a napkin, embarrassed to be seen in such a disheveled state. John, overprotective as always, handed her a lip balm. It was a brand new lip balm he had bought himself and asked a classmate to give to her. The other student called him to the gym, and as Biao Jun left, he told Sami not to refuse the gift. She felt incredibly awkward. This was the 3rd time John had gone out of his way to do this for her, and she couldn't refuse. Later, she finally used the lip balm, the first time since leaving home. Back then, she couldn't even manage her own hair and makeup, a completely spoiled brat. Now, she was content as long as she could smile again without her lips cracking. Later, while taking out the trash, she overheard another girl's conversation. Some thugs had cornered Kim M.O.A., demanding money, but she had nothing on her today. This answer obviously didn't satisfy the thugs, who had other business to attend to and were in no mood to wait. One of the troublemakers lunged forward, throwing a punch at the bullied victim. Suddenly, a girl with spiked hair appeared out of nowhere, shielding the other girl. The punch landed on her cheek. It all happened so fast that even the thug who threw the punch didn't realize what had happened at first. Instead of apologizing, she snarled at the dark-haired girl who had interfered. Mo was shocked by Sam I's sudden appearance, but equally confused as to why she would defend her. One of the thugs suddenly noticed blood on the attacker's hand, but it wasn't her own. Sam I's lips hadn't fully healed, and the impact of the punch had caused one of the cuts to split open again. The leader of the group panicked. Her punch had been too hard, but she blamed the girl who had suddenly appeared, accusing her of meddling where she wasn't wanted. Mo also lashed out at Sam I, not understanding why she had interfered when no one had asked for her help. Sam I wiped the blood from her chin, wondering why everyone was acting crazy. Sam I's furious expression scared the thugs away, but the leader threw a parting threat at Mo before disappearing. Mo, still furious at her savior, told her to get lost as well, but then grabbed her hand and dragged her away. They stopped at a street faucet so Sam I could wash the blood off her face. The wound was still bleeding slightly, and Mo told her to see a doctor. But Sam I argued that it was just a split lip and would heal on its own. Then Mo told her to stop meddling in other people's business, but Sam I said she couldn't, that anyone in her position would have done the same. At that moment, Kim and Mo realized that this girl was a little off. Her cheek was also injured. Perhaps Sam I was trying to make friends with her this way, but Mo still refused. Then she walked off in the opposite direction, leaving a bewildered Mo behind. Elsewhere, two women met, and one invited the other to lunch. She was also worried about her uncle, who often skipped meals because of work, so having lunch together would be perfect. Besides, the medication wasn't working very well, and he still woke up at night with seizures. He kept having dreams about the accident, especially after he went to look for her himself. She had been trapped in the hotel across the street when the accident happened, so it took a long time to find her. And for her, it was a huge wake-up call. Meanwhile, Taeben was on his way to class when his friends offered him the last triangle kimbap, but he refused it because the triangular shape reminded him of the girl he kept pursuing. After school, he ran into Sam I's ex-boyfriends again, but he walked right past them without a word. This time, the guy was about to explode. How could Joo Yoon and Park Young know everything and never tell him? When he finally saw her face, he had to pretend not to know her or she would run away again. He showed up at her school, and the security guard immediately noticed he wasn't a student there. Just as the guard was about to question him, someone shouted that a student was locked in the auditorium. It wasn't just the security guard. Other students also noticed Taeben's different uniform. He paid no mind to the whispers behind him. He was there for answers. He grabbed a student wearing glasses, about to question him. Meanwhile, Sam I was still cleaning the classroom. The other students had already left when Biao Jun entered, assuming his classmate was late again because of her part-time job. When she admitted she was free, he invited her for a walk. She found it odd he wasn't taking the bus home, but Biao Jun had already made up his mind to walk with her from now on. Sam I knew this was Taeben's doing, but she assured him she would handle it. Biao Jun looked at her seriously, making it clear he wouldn't accept any refusal. Then he smiled sweetly, and Sam I noticed he'd been smiling more lately. Just as she was about to explain she hadn't run into that guy again, they both heard his voice at the door. Taeben walked into the classroom, explaining that a student with glasses had pointed him in the right direction. He then casually greeted Sam I, making it obvious he recognized her. Sam I was momentarily speechless, then anger flared in her face. Taeben glanced at Biao Jun, guessing they were classmates. The two boys locked eyes, sparks flying, but Taeben had to talk to Sam I. He asked her why she pretended not to know him at the store and admitted he'd recognize her instantly. Biao Jun tried to shoo the intruder away, but Taeben told him to mind his own business. He also declared he and Sam I were close, so her classmate had no right to interfere. Both boys wore stern expressions, neither willing to back down, each trying to convey with their eyes that they wouldn't yield. Biao Jun even took a step forward, vowing not to let anyone bully his girl, no matter what. He grabbed her hand, claiming they were very close, leaving her completely stunned. Meanwhile, Yoo Chan was racking his brain over the recent message from Biao Jun telling him not to wait. It was strange enough, and Biao Jun hadn't even replied to his follow-up texts. So Yoo Chan decided to go to their classroom and talk in person and see if Sam I had also slipped away. There, Biao Jun, still holding Sam I's hand tightly, explained to Taeben that barging into someone's school uninvited was incredibly rude. Furthermore, he wouldn't let some stranger take his classmate away before things were cleared up. Peeking from behind Biao Jun, Sam I saw Taeben barely containing his fury. No one knew what would have happened next if Yoo Chan hadn't walked into the classroom. At that moment, he spotted the guy in the different uniform from the doorway, immediately thinking, who the heck is this? Taeben, with his back to Yoo Chan, turned his head slightly, and Yoo Chan instantly recognized him as the person Sam had been avoiding. The only remaining mystery was why he was here. Scanning the room, Yoo Chan sensed the tense atmosphere, like a live wire about to snap. But what really shocked him was seeing Biao Jun holding Samai's hand like they were old friends. Taeben looked ready to pounce, trying to provoke Biao Jun, refusing to believe he was that guy. Oh, before things got out of hand, Semi stepped in, snapping at Taeben to get lost. Even though she shrieked like a banshee, her voice sounded like a sweet melody to Taeben. He decided not to let things escalate further and promised to leave without causing any trouble. All signs pointed to his current situation being highly unfavorable. But before leaving, he told Sam and Biao Jun to stop clinging to each other, calling them lousy actors. The two seemed to be waiting for his cue, immediately separating as soon as Biao Jun released his classmate's hand. A flicker of jealousy flashed in Yoo Chan's eyes. Biao Jun apologized to Sam for grabbing her so rudely, but she knew he was just trying to help. She was also embarrassed by Taeben's appearance, which had complicated matters further. Meanwhile, Taeben walked down the street, silently cursing Biao Jun for holding his Samai's hand. He still believed she belonged to him, and no one else had the right to have her. Samai apologized to her friends for dragging them into this mess with that guy. She realized he had recognized her at the store and had likely tracked her down based on her uniform. She knew his pursuit wasn't over. Taeben would continue to follow her. Yoo Chan changed the subject, asking Biao Jun why he hadn't replied to his messages. Biao Jun said he hadn't seen them yet, then confessed that because of that annoying guy, he was going to walk Semi home from now on. Suddenly, they heard their friend cry out in distress. She bolted out, clearly wanting to run away and avoid causing them any more trouble. Yoo Chan, assuming she was in such a hurry because she'd definitely picked up a part-time job, let her go. Biao Jun tried to explain that because Samai had frozen, he'd stepped in to protect her and had grabbed her hand. Despite this, John couldn't shake the feeling that the guy was following Sam, and vowed to walk her home with Biao Jun. He admitted they had previously encountered the creep at the store. He knew back then that the guy wasn't there by chance, even though he pretended not to know Samai. Samai, realizing Taeben had stolen her phone, immediately chased after him, demanding he back off. She cursed her carelessness, but couldn't find him after searching the streets for a long time. As she quickly rounded a corner, someone abruptly grabbed her wrist and pulled her in. Taeben cornered her as if he had been waiting and showed off her phone, thinking that was what she came for. Samai, certain she had caught the thief, started yelling at him for his childish trick. She demanded he return her phone because she needed it to pay her bills. Taeben kept provoking her, saying she was still as sharp as ever. He was even enjoying teasing her now and invited her to a private place where no one would intrude to talk. Samai hated the idea, but had no choice. Her phone was in his hands. After Chan got home from school, no matter what he did, the events that unfolded at school today kept replaying in his mind. What truly bothered him wasn't Taeben going after Samai, but his best friend holding her hand the entire time. This made Yoo Chan feel betrayed, and he considered Biao Jun's act of betrayal a step too far. Taeben wanted to know why Sam had become so thin, but she just grumbled, begging him to return her phone. But the guy only remarked that it was foolish of her to run away from home, and she looked awful now. She would have to put in a lot of effort to get back to how she used to look. Her hair and skin were in terrible condition. But the girl just glared at Taeben and declared that the old Samai was dead. Taeben played dumb, pretending not to understand what she meant. After all, she was standing right in front of him, alive and well. She clearly had health issues, and he didn't want to give her phone back either, or she would run away again. He was also curious why she left everyone and hid. To get answers, Taeben even promised to return her phone later, as she couldn't live a day without it. He let his guard down for a moment, and Samai snatched her phone back from his hand. Then she scolded him even more harshly for being so despicable and a complete idiot. Worse, she threatened that if he showed up at her school again, she would disappear instantly, making it impossible for him to find even a trace of her. Despite Taeben tailing her, Samai snapped at him to stop following her. She just wanted to vanish right away. She was afraid her past mistakes would repeat themselves around him. For a moment, she even felt guilty for still only thinking about herself like a selfish brat. Two students passed by, and one of their cards fell into a sewer grate. They tried everything to move it, but the grate was too heavy. But Semi walked over, stuck her work stick into the grate, and hooked the card right up. The kids thanked her sincerely, and she continued on her way. Then, with the same stick, she caught a student's hat in midair, blown off by a gust of wind. The locals, already familiar with Sami, were now even more grateful and respectful towards her. Then she went over to the security guard and helped him with the newly planted seedlings. But she worried that the cherry tree tragedy would repeat itself. He just shrugged, saying the lettuce was growing well. The security guard overheard two girls greeting Sam, and guessed she had made new friends. It warmed his heart that they liked her for who she was, not just her looks. She didn't want to talk about it, so she diverted his attention with small talk about the lettuce and cabbage seedlings. A little while later, she saw Biao Jun helping a female student carry a large stack of books. The girl was grateful. The books were very heavy, and she couldn't help but keep looking at Biao Jun's face. Sami decided to walk over, turned the corner, and swore to herself that she was over Biao Jun and Chan. At Tabin school, students noticed he was still missing and started to worry, wondering why he hadn't shown up. One girl was especially anxious because he promised to return her textbook, which she had lent him, today. Even though Tabin always skipped class, his dad had connections, so he didn't care about the consequences. Pakian noticed their classmate had been acting very nervous lately, as if a storm was brewing. Sami, listening to her cassette tape during break time, was the last one left, with music only on two of the tapes. Suddenly, a classmate rushed past, snatching a phone to peek at someone else's text messages. He quickly ran past Sami's desk and slipped on his slippers. He was about to fall hard onto Sami, but Biao Jun grabbed his collar and pulled him aside. Everyone was thrilled by Biao Jun's timely heroic act. He told the troublemaker that running around in the classroom was a bad idea. The child thanked him for preventing the accident and was impressed by his strength. Sami thanked the boy who helped her. Without him, her tape might have been ruined. She noticed his hair was all wet, and he said he'd just showered after playing basketball. Then they started talking about Tabin, with Yang being the first to ask a question. She explained that Tabin hadn't actually done anything wrong, and she'd been overthinking things. But Pojang still felt that Sami was completely smitten with the guy. He wondered if Sami felt the same way about Tabin, but she remained silent. Later, while doing her chores, Sami couldn't figure out why Young had been acting so strange lately. To get her mind off things, she decided to listen to her latest tape. Meanwhile, Chan received a text from Young, asking what his friend was up to. Are you still upset about what happened recently? He now saw Pojang's behavior as that of a spoiled child who had run away from home. As he left his house, he bumped into Sami, who froze as soon as she saw him. Finding it a bit odd, he called out to her, but she didn't hear him because she was wearing headphones. Then, as he got closer, Yoo Chan saw that her face was covered in tears. Just before that, Sami had pressed play, not expecting anything. Most of the tapes were blank, and she figured this one would be the same. Then, a melody started playing, followed by a voice. Hearing that voice, Sami froze. It was at that moment that Chan saw her from across the street. Seeing her tears, he wondered why she was crying. Thinking someone had hurt her, Chan ran towards her, ignoring the traffic. Then he saw her staring intently at her player and realized, or so he thought, that it was because of the song. But it wasn't the song at all. It was her dad's voice on the tape, a voice she hadn't heard in a long time. He apologized for missing her birthday, and then he mentioned the dinner from the night before, hoping she'd enjoyed the food. Sami immediately recalled their last dinner together. That's why she was in tears. Then she remembered her old friends and how she'd run into Tabin again. She looked up and saw John standing there. The voice on the tape continued, saying they would be reunited after her mom got off work that night. Her parents regretted not seeing her before they left for work and begged for her forgiveness. The recording ended, and Sami cried even harder, begging her parents for forgiveness herself. Her body trembled with sobs. John felt he should comfort her, so he gently patted her head. He noticed she was desperately trying to hold back, but she couldn't. Watching this, his heart broke. Biao Jun walked in to find his dad wearing an apron apologizing for his mom's actions. His dad admitted that, despite being scared, he'd pleaded with his ex-wife not to do anything that would upset their son. Then he apologized to his son for dragging him into this mess. Biao Jun clarified that he didn't hate his mom. He just needed time to process everything. The next day, Sammy arrived at school, her eyes red and puffy from crying. A classmate with glasses asked John a question as he walked in. Do you know why Sammy looked so distraught? It turned out the nerdy classmate was just handing out school notices that needed a parent's signature. Sammy flinched, startling the classmate, who then told her to go to the nurse's office. She snapped at him, and he backed off. She struggled to see the paper, determined to handle it herself. But Biao Jun leaned over and asked, "Are you okay?" and then told her to hold out her hand. Surprised, she did as he asked. He placed a few candies in her hand, hoping the sour-sweet taste would cheer her up. He admitted the candies were weird. They even made his tongue numb. When he ate these candies, he could only focus on the taste and felt nothing else. But the effect didn't last. Sammy realized this boy was helping her, even though he had no idea why. Then a student yelled, "The homeroom teacher is coming," and everyone immediately ran back to their seats. Sammy hadn't had a chance to eat the candy, so she decided to save it for later. Taeban's dad received a call at his office, informing him that his son wanted to transfer schools. Knowing his child was mischievous and sometimes impulsive, he still agreed to his request. He just didn't understand why his son would choose that specific school. Meanwhile, in Sammy's class, the students were stunned when a K-pop idol walked through the door. Lost in her thoughts, the girl didn't understand why everyone suddenly became noisy. She looked up and was horrified when she saw the new student their teacher was welcoming. It was Taeban. He politely introduced himself, hoping to get along with everyone. To everyone else, he was a new face. Only Biao Jun and Sammy realized this guy was up to no good. Meanwhile, in Taeban's old class, Joo-yoon and Pak-yoon couldn't figure out why their classmate had transferred. The school assigned him a seat, but he requested to choose his own spot. The teacher didn't argue. The principal had personally recommended this student. Biao Jun wanted to ask Sam if she knew the reason for his transfer, but noticed she was barely suppressing her anger. The teacher just silently watched Taeban, not daring to object, as his father worked for the government. This guy decided to sit in the back seat next to Sam, making the student who was originally sitting there find another spot. During break, the girls crowded around Taeban, taking the opportunity to ask for his phone number. He rudely refused, saying he wasn't going to share his story, only muttering that he already had a girlfriend. Although the girls were a little displeased, they didn't press the matter. After all, he was too cute to hate. Others disliked Taeban's behavior from day one, but figured it was best not to provoke him, as long as he didn't go too far. Yoo Chan had been trying to find a way to help Sammy, and he found a website that could digitize old cassette tapes. He remembered her apologizing for crying yesterday, saying she hadn't heard her parents' voices in a long time. He knew the tape might be damaged, so he wanted to digitize it before it disappeared completely. The image of Sam's tear-streaked face was etched in his mind, breaking his heart. Sammy told him to stay out of it, saying she would handle Taeban herself. She told herself she could do it, even though there were several times she almost hit him with a textbook. Now this annoying guy was clinging to her in class, sitting next to her so he could bother her as much as he pleased. During break, as soon as Sammy stepped out the door, Taeban suddenly jumped up and followed her. He stuck his tongue out at Biao Jun like a child, flaunting his dominance. Taeban was a little annoyed because the school rules didn't allow earrings, and he had to take his out. Then he found Sammy and started teasing her, saying that if she kept it up, her face would soon swell up like a steamed bun. The girl just growled at him, telling him to go back to his own school. But he had no intention of leaving. He wanted to know why Sammy kept avoiding him. He also sensed that she was actually curious about what he was going to do next. Meanwhile, Yoo Chan bought banana milk and was about to go find Sammy. He knew she was exhausted from crying. Something sweet should cheer her up. She kept telling Taeban that she wasn't going to play any games with him and demanded he stay away. But Taeban didn't give up. He knew she was having a hard time, but didn't understand how it related to her current struggles. He couldn't understand why this girl would act like this, letting herself go, like a princess who wanted to experience the life of a bratty kid. Sammy knew Taeban was right. Before she left, she had a lot going on and even more desires. So she decided to move out on her own, ignoring her family's pleas. Even their tears couldn't stop her. They gave her a card and told her to take some time off, believing it would bring her to her senses and back to her old life. But Samai couldn't forgive herself for leaving home before the accident, nor could she forgive herself for being rude on the phone, so she decided to leave everything behind and start over, severing all ties with the past. But now, she told Taeben that it was all just a game, that she hadn't given up on anything, not for a second. The tension between them seemed to ease somewhat. But just then, with a clatter, a carton of banana milk fell to the ground. The next second, Yoo Chan rushed over and shoved Taeben, thinking this guy was bullying his girl again. He was all in, ready to make a scene to protect Samai. Meanwhile, one of Biao Jun's classmates stopped him, saying some senior students wanted to see them. He agreed, but his mind was elsewhere. All he could think about was Samai's face, her shocked expression when Yoo Chan completely lost it on Taeben. But Taeben didn't see the red-haired boy as a threat, just jokingly saying he was like a loyal puppy. He shook off Yoo Chan's hand, but Yoo Chan was ready to fight, not flinching or backing down. Taeben just said that they jumped him for no reason as soon as he showed up. Yoo Chan was convinced he was a stalker who had been following Samai, and she was furious. She regretted blurting out about him being a former classmate and apologized, but still believed it was true. He'd been following her around since middle school, practically to the bathroom door, and he was still doing it now. The girl apologized to Yoo Chan for not telling him the whole story and admitted that she had studied with Taeben not long ago. Taeben immediately corrected Samai, saying they weren't just friends, he was her boyfriend. The girl flew into a rage, declaring it was all lies, just like before, and told Yoo Chan not to believe a word Taeben said. Yoo Chan realized they weren't even enemies and apologized to Taeben for the altercation. He admitted he was also Samai's friend, but the dark-haired, handsome guy just found it a little amusing. While the boys were talking, Samai noticed a new carton of banana milk on the ground. As she bent down to pick it up, Taeben yelled something at Yoo Chan and stormed off, not bothering to say goodbye to Samai, since they would see each other in class soon enough. When Samai returned to the classroom, she overheard the students panicking about the new boy's disappearance and Pooja being nowhere to be found. Ignoring them, she took out the candy June had given her while she still had time. The moment the candy touched her tongue, Samai's face didn't just turn green, it cycled through a rainbow of colors. The taste was so sour she wanted to spit it out, but couldn't find the wrapper. Unable to hold back any longer, she spat it out without a second thought. John suddenly appeared, catching the candy midair and realizing the flavor wasn't suitable for his girlfriend, even though he liked it himself. Samai blushed, holding the candy she just spat out. Pooja promised to throw it away. Just then, she saw Taeben appear at the doorway. He paused, and the girl wondered what the idiot had done wrong now. After school, June and Yoo Chan rode the bus together, discussing how Taeben's appearance in their class wasn't a coincidence. The guy had definitely transferred to the same school and class as Samai on purpose. Yoo Chan was even a little pleased to see a rival appear, as it meant Sam would have more opportunities to spend time with him. Even when Samai went to do her recycling job, Taeben clung to her. He questioned her schedule and what part-time job she did. The girl yelled at him to stop following her, threatening to disappear without a trace. Taeben saw the seriousness in her eyes and backed off this time. Samai recalled last year when her parents were busy with work and she had to spend her birthday and Christmas alone, feeling abandoned. She wanted revenge, to make them frantically search for her, just like she had felt. So she ran away from home, leaving a note saying her parents only cared about work all year round, and she found it cruel. Samai booked every hotel owned by their company, forcing her parents to find her themselves, or she would never return home or to school. Her dramatic outburst shocked everyone. She couldn't face the fact that work was more important to her parents than she was. Relatives who saw her message first raised the alarm and started searching for her. Her parents searched every hotel in the city, one by one. Her father hadn't slept all night, and his wife pleaded to drive, but he refused, knowing she was just as exhausted. Samai had deliberately booked every hotel in secret, making the search a challenge. Sitting in her hotel room, she heard footsteps outside the door, and her heart tightened. They had finally found her. She rushed to the door, but when she flung it open, it was her uncle standing there. Without even a greeting, he blurted out, "There's been an accident. It's Samai's fault." From that day on, guilt took root deep within her. It was no longer a game, but a burden she had to carry. That's why she cut ties with her family, as a punishment for herself. A punishment for the selfish act that cost her parents their lives. Later, an aunt gave her an old rice cooker. The The rice cooker was practically new and easy to use, but for her, it was both exciting and a little frightening. Another uncle gave her a fan with a broken switch. But under this fan, Semi could escape the summer heat. The broken button didn't matter. The breeze was just right. Suddenly, the rice cooker started making strange, loud clicking sounds and even vibrating slightly, less like a kitchen appliance and more like a time bomb. Terrified, Semi dashed to the corner to wait, breaking her own speed record, but nothing exploded. The rice was just done. She later learned online that the sound was perfectly normal. After cleaning up, she went out to run errands and bumped into her neighbor in the hallway. The woman had baked cookies and shared some with Sami. She also noticed Sami wasn't wearing her tracksuit. It was because of the heat she had changed into shorts. As they chatted, John emerged from his apartment, having woken up early specifically to walk with Sami. To make matters worse, instead of waiting for the bus, he put on gloves and joined the neighbor in sorting the recycling. The summer day was hot, and the cicadas were noisy, but Tabin was equally loud. Sami used the break time to review the quiz answers, but Tabin barely left her side. When she ignored his invitations to hang out, he decided to just watch her for the time being. His classmates noticed, speculating that they were friends, or at least knew each other. Some observed that despite coming from completely different worlds, the boy was smitten with Sami. Tabin kept urging Sami to cheer up and at least put on some lotion. And it annoyed him a little that everyone was gossiping, yet clueless about her true identity. Sami suddenly offered him a piece of candy, not just handing it over, but feeding it to him. Tabin found it strange, but complied. The moment the candy touched his tongue, he started spitting and cursing, wondering what the heck it was. She was fed up with the man, ignoring her request to back off, so she retaliated. Besides, she didn't care what others thought of her. She was tired of her old way of life. Meanwhile, the chairman showed up at Professor Kim's clinic for a consultation, but Professor Kim was puzzled. Why him? Their company had a well-equipped internal hospital. It turned out Sami was receiving treatment there. Still, the doctor found it strange that the chairman hadn't chosen his own clinic and worried something might be wrong with Sami. The guy wanted to check on the girl. Goodness, she'd been through so much, and he was still her legal guardian. Tabin visited the principal, who was overjoyed they'd gotten such a student. The kid had top grades and was the son of a councilman, so he told Tabin to come to him with any problems. Just then, Tabin had a specific request for the principal. Sami had told Chan that he'd recommended a shop that could digitize her cassette tapes and offer to go with her. But she decided to handle it herself, had already set up a meeting, and they would take care of it soon. Besides, John had done her a huge favor finding the shop, so she thanked him sincerely. Seeing his girlfriend smile made him feel good. Suddenly, a buzzing sound broke the moment. Sami saw a wasp flying straight towards her. To her, the thing felt as big as a jet plane. Fear made everything seem larger. She knew she couldn't move or breathe in such situations, so she told Shane as much. She reached out and grabbed his sleeve as if trying to anchor her friend in place. She stood motionless, her eyes tracking the wasp's flight path. Only after the wasp flew away did she release Chan's hand, then admitted she was terrified. The guy didn't want to act like a fearless hero, so he admitted to being scared too. Then, they went to check on the lettuce seedlings. They were growing so fast, it seemed like they shot up every hour. It was time to harvest. If they waited too long, the leaves would turn bitter. But for Sami, edible was good enough. She was having a salad for dinner tonight, plus the lentil pasta her aunt had given her, so she could skip the meat. Passing a storefront window, Sami saw a poster for a handsome boys video contest. Just then, someone yelled, "Kim Taehyun, Juno." It seemed the guy had arrived. When she saw his strange makeup and goofy headband, she burst out laughing. He hadn't seen his classmate coming either and blushed crimson, even through the grease paint, yanking off the headband. He blushed even harder when the production assistant yelled for him to put on the dress. The wig was almost ready. Assistant Jun didn't know where to hide, feeling somewhat humiliated in front of his classmate. Sami knew it was for a shoot, but he still convinced her to move somewhere else to talk. When Jun reached a street-side sink, he found that plain water wouldn't remove the makeup. His eyelashes were completely glued together. The girl, unsure how to help, offered him the tissues she always carried. Jun explained he hadn't wanted to participate in the filming at all. He'd hidden all day to avoid the upperclassmen, but they'd found him anyway. Sami just reminded him to button his shirt and stop walking around so disheveled. Noticing the smudged eyeliner on his face, she offered to wipe it off. Meanwhile, Tabin strutted down the school hallway, putting his earrings in. He was pleased the school allowed him to wear them. They were crucial to his character's look. Through the window, he caught sight of Sami and Paijin chatting animatedly, then saw Jun leaning in close to her. Taben was completely unaware they were discussing smudged eyeliner. Jealousy flared. He didn't stick around to see how it ended. Taben bolted from the building, practically flying down the stairs. By the time he reached the street, he'd figured out what they were talking about, just as Sammy was about to point out the smudge on Jun's face. Taben tossed him a napkin, which he caught mid-air. Sammy, stunned by the whole scene, turned, bewildered by her ex-boyfriend's actions. He panted, muttering, "Our classmate can use that to wipe his face." Meanwhile, other girls gossiped about their follower counts and the pictures of Paijin they'd posted online. Next, they planned to post pictures of Taben, even though he was a lunatic and they'd be toast if he found out. But then they spotted Sammy digging in her bag, pulling out a few lettuce leaves. They snapped a picture, captioning it, "Our school beggar." And Moe stepped in, objecting to the joke and telling the girls to stop, but they wouldn't listen. Just as someone claimed it was all harmless fun, one of the girls had her phone snatched from her hand. It was Taben. He didn't get the humor and immediately deleted the photo. He'd been tempted to smash the bully's phone, but refrained, deciding to let it go this time. He told the girls they owed some I-1. The girls scattered in fright, while Taben approached Osum, greeting her with a smile. Meanwhile, in the boys' locker room, students were changing after practice, but the place reeked like a garbage dump. The stench of sweat and socks mingled, creating a hellish aroma, like breathing inside a shoebox left out in the sun. Jun walked towards his locker to grab something, but the moment he touched the door, it slammed shut. Taben stood there, silent, a smirk playing on his lips, his expression making it clear he wasn't there for small talk. Jun, ignoring the troublemaker, yanked the locker door open again, but Taben slammed it shut once more, back and forth like some twisted game. The other students stopped what they were doing, watching to see if the two would actually fight. Neither of them backed down, their faces expressionless. Taben finally left Jun alone and walked out. He figured the guy wouldn't back down under pressure, stubborn to his own detriment. Then, Pak-yeon called, asking where he'd hidden her biology textbook, the one she'd filled with all her exam notes. But when she saw the school emblem on his shirt, the new school's logo no less, it clicked. It was the same school as Sam I's, and Pak-yeon realized Taben had found the girl he'd been searching for. He didn't want to talk about it, and hung up. Sema was glad Taben had slipped out early, finally some peace in the classroom. After class, everyone left, but she stayed late as usual, and Jun stayed with her. He hadn't met up with his friend Chan today because of tutoring. His stomach growled loud enough to echo, and the girl instantly knew he was starving. Remembering she had stashed some snacks, Sam I immediately dove into her bag. She pulled out the cookies John's mom had packed for her that morning. She'd been so busy with her own things that she'd completely forgotten about them, but now she was glad they came in handy. As she offered Jun one, he took a bite before she could even let go. He chewed slowly, then nodded, "Oh my God, so good," his eyes already begging for the rest. Semi handed him the last one, which he snatched from her hand like a well-trained puppy. Then, with his mouth full, he mumbled something about going home. When she got back to the apartment, the first thing she did was make a signature dish of her own creation. She scooped some rice and beans onto a lettuce leaf, rolled it into a ball, and gently pinched it together. Now, she just had to taste it. Wow, the flavor was amazing. John was coming back from class with two classmates, one of whom suggested they grab something to eat. They were passing a place, and the guy even had a discount coupon, but then they saw Sam rushing towards them, eyes glued to her phone, not watching where she was going. But she was used to it by now, and seeing her friends, she explained she was rushing off to another part-time job. Chan boasted that they had digitized her tapes, and she snatched the disc after school. The guy wanted to ask something else, but Semi had already hurried off, so they said their goodbyes. Chan's classmate noticed he was tight with the girl, even though they seemed worlds apart. They grilled him about her clothes, saying she dressed like something out of the 80s. Wild hair, her bag was falling apart, like something even a grandma wouldn't use. But Chan snapped, telling his classmates to stop talking about Sami. He lashed out at them for their rudeness, even saying their mouths were dirtier than a garbage can. The classmates were stunned to hear their buddy talk like that. They didn't understand why he was getting so worked up, and now they felt awkward, even though they were just stating facts. But Chan had enough and walked off alone. His friends had never seen him like this. It was actually kind of scary, as he was always the smiley type. Later, Taben ran into Pak-yeon, handing her a textbook and demanding an iced Americano in return. The girl was a bit shocked. It was her own textbook, but honestly, this kind of thing was totally expected from this guy. They went to a cafe, and while getting their drinks, They talked about their dramatic teenage past. Jun said Taeben went crazy to transfer to the same school and class as Samai. She was curious how he pulled it off, and he explained that his dad and uncle, along with their well-connected friends, helped him. A silence fell as the girls waited for the wild guy to spill more details. Then Jun yelled at Taeben to tell him what he'd found out about their former classmate. He calmly said he didn't know anything, that he was trying to figure out why she was living the way she was now. Samai went to the market for her part-time job selling vegetables. She was as polite as ever to the customers, even teaching them how to hold the fruit so they wouldn't bruise it. Her produce sold out quickly, a bonus, and now she wouldn't have to worry about utility bills. Plus, the inn gave her a whole box of grapes. Oh, Samai couldn't remember the last time she'd seen grapes. On her way home, she gave some to a friendly police officer, and she stopped by her neighbor's aunt's house to share the grapes, so they could enjoy them together. John sat in his room with messages piling up from his friends, but he didn't reply. They begged him to stop sulking and make up. Seeing the next message, John just turned off his phone. It felt strange. They had been friends since high school, but even though they kept apologizing, he didn't want to see them. His mom called him to eat grapes, but John refused. When he heard the grapes were from Samai, he bolted out the door. His younger brother started teasing him. His mom explained that Samai just dropped them off and left, and Yoo was already trying to feed the dog grapes. While the family was munching on the grapes, Samai back at her place was wolfing them down, juice dripping everywhere. The next day, as Biao Jun walked towards the classroom, Taeben was fooling around and blocked his way. During break time, when Biao Jun went to the cafeteria for lunch, the pesky guy followed him again. Now, he snatched a sausage from Biao Jun's plate and stuffed it in his mouth. Biao Jun thought the bully would at least leave him alone in the gym, but then a basketball hit his back. He decided to ignore it again. Other students saw the new guy and were immediately in awe of his looks. Word spread fast. He was going to be the next hot topic. Basketball practice somehow ended smoothly. When they got back to the classroom, Taeben plopped down on Biao Jun's desk and wouldn't budge. Just then, they noticed Samai. A classmate had just asked her to retrieve a USB drive stuck behind the snack machine. Taeben realized, Samai had always been popular, but she looked different now, strangely different. Biao Jun remembered John's warning that the bully used to go to the same school as Sam I and had been her buddy since middle school. Meanwhile, the bully was fuming, thinking his girlfriend had become even crazier. He decided it was all Biao Jun's fault. He finally acknowledged the middle school rumors that Sam I and his girlfriend were an item. Then, with a smug look, he tried to provoke Biao Jun, saying they had even kissed before. Taeben ran into her, asking why she wasn't replying to his messages. He wanted to give her a birthday present, handing her a box of matching jewelry, but the girl refused. She didn't want to wear a couple items with Taeben, which hurt him. He had spent 2 months making them, even injuring himself in the process. Cutting and polishing those tiny pieces wasn't easy. He had to ruin several before getting one right. One earring even had Sam I's initials engraved on the inside, so tiny you had to squint to see them. She leaned closer to the box to get a better look. Taeben leaned in too, then offered to put them on her, but Samai refused. At that moment, they both looked up and their lips accidentally brushed against each other. That was the infamous kiss Taeben bragged about, but he never told the full story. He just had to show off, especially in front of a potential rival. He knew it barely counted as a kiss, but Biao Jun didn't seem fazed. It just made him wonder why Taeben was telling him all this. Taking down the guy was harder than expected. If he were Taeben, he would look out for himself first, but then he saw Sam I. She was collecting trash as usual. He immediately asked her if she still had the earrings he gave her last time. The girl seemed to have forgotten, so he reminded her it was her birthday present. Samai still pretended not to remember, so Taeben added that it took him 2 whole months to make them. Seeing his classmate completely unresponsive, he decided to let her off the hook for today. This girl was trouble, but only made him more interested. Someone told Samai's uncle that she had only come back once to take her inheritance. It was a cassette tape her mom had kept. The girl had taken the player earlier. It wasn't new. Her mom had bought it with her first paycheck, but it was priceless to Sam I. They hadn't seen her for months and missed her dearly. In her uncle's eyes, she was a sharp-eyed, hot-tempered little girl. Meanwhile, Sam I continued working, this time dispatched to deliver fruit to an elementary school. The client was grateful, and the girl finished quickly. The kids desperately needed snacks. Then the woman asked the teacher, Mr. Kim, to help carry the boxes. As Samai walked, she saw some kids outside bullying a little girl. Moe's younger sister was being hit with a toy hammer, but she just silently endured their cruel game. Samai couldn't stand it and intervened. She told the girl she should stand up for herself. The kids said she was always quiet, like she had swallowed her tongue. They had never heard her speak. Kim Moe didn't say anything, but ran over and hugged her rescuer. The bullies thought the two of them knew each other. Then, when they saw their mom, their faces contorted in fear. They scattered, while Samai comforted the little girl, understanding how hurt and upset she was. The client, the bully's mother, arrived in person. She thought the girl's reaction was strange. She doesn't even act that way with her own sister. They're worried about her emotional state and planned to take her to a specialist. The woman asked Mohi to let go. Samai saw Chan's younger brother. The boy saw her too and approached, bowing deeply. Mohi clearly didn't want to let go of her rescuer, clinging tightly. It was difficult to pry her off. Biao Jun was on the phone with his mother, assuring her not to worry and saying he'd talk to his dad personally. He had exams this week and had to study, so he wasn't going anywhere, but he'd text her after his exams. Chan, sitting next to Biao Jun on the stadium bench, was a little surprised at how calmly he spoke to his mother. He used to find those conversations excruciating. Biao Jun assured him that their relationship was normal now. He thought he could handle it, convinced he could resolve things because he'd found something. To satisfy his friend's curiosity, he admitted it was someone he could really focus on. Just then, he received a message from his dad, realizing his mom must have called him immediately. Now Chan was even more curious about who this person was, but Biao Jun was already heading to his next class, suddenly remembering he'd forgotten his language textbook. He asked Chan to lend him one, and Chan just couldn't resist probing the mystery. After some quick thinking, he started piecing together the clues. It had to be Samai. The students were told not to doze off today because they had a very important lesson. The new kid raised his hand, saying he hadn't received his language textbook yet. It was Taben. He was probably doing it on purpose, but he needed her permission to look at his deskmate's book. His deskmate turned out to be Samai, who immediately knew the guy was lying. Taben had it all planned out. He wanted to provoke Biao Jun again, but Biao Jun sat there as usual, ignoring them. So Taben leaned closer, staring at Samai's completely makeup-free face. Her curly hair looked like a triangular gimbap, definitely not the Samai he had a crush on. He drew a heart in his notebook and then handed it to her with a smirk, daring her to take a look. She just pushed the notebook aside, unfazed. It wasn't going to distract her from her studies. The notebook landed on the floor with a thud, attracting the attention of every student and the teacher. After class, the teacher warned everyone that everything they learned today would be on the test, but Taben didn't seem to care. The class after lunch was utterly boring. He started stretching, and then bang, his desk somehow went flying sideways. It was Biao Jun passing by. He slammed Taben's desk back into place, but with excessive force. The desk skidded across the corner until it hit the filing cabinet. Taben blinked in surprise, while Samai stared in utter confusion, wondering what the heck was wrong with him. The whole class turned their heads at the sound of colliding furniture, eyes wide. Biao Jun turned to Taben and yelled, "You sit down. That's your desk. You pushed it." The students immediately understood. All eyes were on the two boys, waiting for a good show. The two stared intensely at each other for 3 seconds. Not a word. Samai watched silently, hoping this wouldn't cause them any trouble. Biao Jun turned around and stomped back to his seat. Taben paused and shuffled back too. The whole class sighed collectively. Their showdown had fizzled out. Taben adjusted his desk, already plotting his next move to annoy his rival. Moi's older sister came over and said the teacher wanted to say goodbye to her. The children stayed quiet, but the teacher didn't mind, saying the girl could say goodbye when she was ready. Moi's sister said the little one had developed some feelings for a friend. It turned out the girl might actually have a crush on her. She recounted what happened and how the quirky classmate had stepped in and mediated a children's quarrel. Moe even gave her a hug. The girl handed her a business card with "Oh Sam" scrawled on it. Walking home, Moe's sister asked her when she was going to start talking like a normal person. She also made her promise to tell her immediately if anyone bullied her again. Samai was fretting over her electricity bill. A new rice cooker and fan meant extra shifts. She was scrolling through her phone when something dropped. A chocolate bar landed right under her nose. She looked up. No one was there, except for Mohi casually sliding back in her chair. She wanted to thank her classmate somehow, but was too shy to talk to her. Back in Chan's class, a boy was bragging about falling head over heels for the girl who also came to the tutoring center, but unfortunately, she went to a different school. It fit his usual type, and now she was his favorite crush. Chan overheard and was curious. Then he sought out Biao Jun, wanting to set the record straight with his friend. I mean, Po never talks about anyone he likes, so he started wondering if he even likes anyone. John explained that love is when you get anxious when the other person isn't around. You always want to be with them, and you genuinely care about their well-being. Like you'd worry about them being taken away by someone else when they're out doing their own thing. Kind of like with Samai, but John couldn't give a precise definition either. Then Taban chimed in, saying that love is also the urge to hug and kiss nonstop for days. Then he went outside, and sure enough, a group of girls swarmed him, asking for his number, but he flatly refused them all. Outside, his friends noticed how harsh Taban was being to the girls, who were actually quite cute. This made them wonder if the handsome guy even had a girlfriend. A guy with glasses handed John the club sign-up sheets, asking him to distribute them to the new students. As he walked, he flipped through the papers, trying to figure out which classes these students were in. Just then, the weather played a trick on him, and a sudden gust of wind swept all the papers out of his hands. But right at that moment, Samai appeared with her usual stick and started chasing after every single flying sheet. After months of practice, she had become quite skilled at this. She neatly stacked the papers and handed them back to June. Only one piece of paper flew away, too high up. Now, they could only wait for the wind to blow it down. But she didn't want to wait forever, so the girl tried jumping and hitting it down with her stick. This proved harder than expected, but June offered to help, lifting his classmate up by her hips so she could reach the paper. She was startled by the sudden lift, and one of her slippers flew off her foot. But the bigger issue was that the handsome guy was holding her waist, while his own expression remained calm. After grabbing the paper, Sam turned to him, clearly signaling that he could put her down now. John then realized how light she was, almost like he could carry her around in his pocket. Then he gently set her down, assuring her that it wasn't much of a workout for him. He told her to eat more because she had become as light as a feather. Sam knew she had lost 5 kilograms since leaving home, which had nothing to do with food, but simply because she was much more active now. If her uncle saw her like this, he would definitely start nagging again. While sweeping, she ran into Chan's mom. Chan's mom noticed she wasn't working any part-time jobs today and invited the young neighbor over for dinner. They were making kimchi. Sam agreed, and when she arrived, Yoo Chan happened to be coming home as well. He had just reached the hallway when he heard his friend chatting with his mom about preparing kimchi. The meal was almost ready, and when Chan's mom saw her son, she told him to come to the table immediately. Then she served some food to her neighbor, hoping she would eat more. The students started chatting, and Sam admitted that she had also helped make the kimchi, finding the process quite involved. Chan's mom turned to her and told her to take a container of food home before she left, as they had made way too much. John was a little worried about how the girl would handle it, since kimchi is a very spicy dish. But she insisted she wasn't afraid of spice, though after a few bites, she realized she had overestimated herself. Her lips even turned red, so the boy offered her some cold water, but she kept refusing. She didn't even want to use milk to neutralize the spice. But in the end, she was conquered by the heat and practically pounced on the bottle. She explained to her friend that she was drinking water only because she wanted to, not because of the spice. Back home, she kept showing off the whole container of kimchi she had received, spicy or not. She kept admiring it, tucking it into the fridge, even though she knew kimchi wouldn't last long once opened. Meanwhile, John went into the bathroom to shower, but his mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. The whole time, he was mainly thinking about the meaning of love and realized he had never really considered it before. Worse, his friend's comparison of the definition to Sam kept playing on his mind. June's dad went ballistic when he found out his son was going to see his mom, because she always ridiculed him. The last time they had lunch together, June almost ended up in the hospital and even tried to. That convinced him to stop listening to his dad. Pei asked him why he even married her in the first place if he felt this way now. The question caught him off guard, and his dad stammered, unsure how to answer, but thought his son wanted to know how his dad felt back then and if he truly wanted to spend his life with her. The man admitted he loved her very much at the time, but feelings can fade. At their old house, a relative told the uncle about the girl's visit, saying she came to inherit a small sum of money. The girl knew knew how hard life had been for Sam after his parents died, and his aunt worked herself to the bone for him. Then she met the uncle, and their luck turned around. Thanks to the land given to them by relatives, they made a fortune. They purchased more land, its value increasing tenfold, and their business became a huge success. Along with winning a lottery ticket she bought in the U.S., this provided stable funding for the business. Meanwhile, Samai was gently wiping her music player when she realized it was broken as it started rewinding. She always carried it with her, feeling like her mom was by her side, but now she only used it at home. She gazed at a photo of herself with her parents, missing them dearly. But it was time to head out, and since the weather looked strange, Samai decided to leave early. She could listen to music on her phone, but needed earphones, so she grabbed a used pair. But some earphones can be quite expensive, and another option was to hold the phone to her ear. Just then, someone shoved a wireless earphone into her ear, startling the girl. Tabin appeared as if out of thin air, casually handing her the gift. He said he'd been waiting there since morning, but the girl wasn't happy, feeling he had crossed a line. Seeing Sam's flustered expression, the guy decided to play a joke and casually draped his arm over her shoulder. She asked him to let go, but he didn't listen, so Samai grabbed his hair and pulled away. She managed to escape him for the time being and headed to school. It was scorching hot outside, and she only felt alive again after stepping into the air-conditioned locker room. The other girls were gossiping about Biao Jun and Tabin running around, and it seemed Tabin was even pursuing Jun. Then they started talking about Samai and Tabin, thinking they were friends before. But Samai looked pitiful, and the girls couldn't understand what that handsome guy saw in her. But then Amoe spoke up, not understanding why they were talking about the girl like that. They thought she was just jealous because she was a loser herself, which was why she reacted that way. Then they started making fun of her, saying Amoe had been reacting strongly lately, as if teaming up with her to defend her. Samai heard all of this from the other side of the locker room, hidden from the bully's view. She didn't pay attention to the gossip, and after school, she prepared to check her messages, hoping to receive some part-time job offers. Just as she walked out of school, the class president caught up to her and asked for her help. It turned out that when they started putting away the sports equipment in the gym, everyone ran off. They had almost moved everything out, but luckily, Biao Jun was still there. Since Biao Jun was there, the class president asked Sam to help clean the gym. They started picking up balls on the other side of the court, and I asked Biao Jun to throw the balls to her. Biao Jun readily agreed and quickly threw the first ball towards her. But the ball had a mind of its own and flew past her. The ball landed a meter away and bounced back, hitting Samai right on the chin. Biao Jun almost gasped, realizing he had caused a big problem. He rushed towards Samai, hoping she wasn't seriously injured. Samai held her chin, trying to reassure Biao Jun that she was fine. But the pain was intense, and Biao Jun crouched down to check if her teeth had been loosened. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Tabin started to worry about where Samai had gone, and then he overheard conversation. They were complaining about everyone leaving the gym to avoid cleaning, leaving the class president to clean up the mess. Someone accidentally mentioned that the class president wasn't alone, and Biao Jun and I were left to clean together. Tabin finally understood why his girlfriend was late, but what really bothered him was that she was with that guy. Meanwhile, Biao Jun was trying to help the girl whose chin was rapidly turning red. He knew he had thrown the ball too hard, so the girl must be in a lot of pain now. She tried to pretend she was fine, saying she was okay, but the next second, she stepped on the ball and lost her balance. Gravity pulled her towards the ground, and Biao Jun panicked, thinking she might hit her head. Just as she fell backward, someone suddenly grabbed her wrist. Biao Jun was relieved. He wouldn't have been able to catch her in time. Samai even thought her fall looked like a movie scene, and the person who saved her just yelled, "Watch where you're going." He had tripped several times himself, and everyone had run off, leaving him to clean up after them. The class president questioned her carefully, worried about her well-being, and then thanked her for stepping up. Later, a disguised girl walked towards Samai's place. She carried a heavy-looking bag on her shoulder and tried to sneak in unnoticed, but Chan's mom saw her on the landing, watching her quietly approach her young neighbor's apartment. But the girl didn't ring the doorbell, just left the bag at the door and left. She ran back even faster, like a criminal who had just planted a bomb. Samai was getting ready for her part-time job at the cafe, where she had to dress neatly. This was the perfect opportunity to wear the clothes her aunt, who also worked part-time, had given her. She even picked out a pair of shoes from the gift she had received. As she walked out the door, the girl noticed something placed there. Then she saw a bag and started wondering who had left her such a gift. Just then, her neighbor saw her and explained that a girl had left the bag. She was about 20 years old, short, with long auburn hair. Semi recognized her as Sunjam. Back home, Sunjam's colleagues started blaming her for approaching Semi. Considering her personality, the girl was worried. After all, Semi had lost so much weight and looked like a toothpick that could be blown away by the wind. She even thought that Semi's relatives might have kidnapped her to force her to eat, so she barely slept. Her colleagues knew that the two of them grew up together, and Semi was like a younger sister to Sunjam, so no wonder she was so worried. He agreed that the girl needed to rest and gain weight, but asked Sunjam not to do this again. He found out she left by snooping through her phone. She was going crazy, wondering how he cracked her password. Jun's friends called, asking where he was, but he was just bored and decided to go for a walk. A few girls approached Biao Jun, inviting him to a bar, but he declined, saying he was still a student. They were curious about what year he was in, as they were students too, and someone casually mentioned Biao Jun was a senior. Taben arrived, and the girls immediately started inviting him, but he also refused, saying it wasn't appropriate for his age. As they left, they were puzzled. These two guys were super tall and didn't look like high school students at all. After they left, and it was just the two of them, Taben brought up the encounter. He asked Biao Jun if these kinds of coincidences happened often in his life. He himself had to be physically present, putting in the effort to close the distance. But he was still giving it his all, unlike Biao Jun, who didn't seem to be putting in the same effort. Taben claimed he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, but Biao Jun wasn't buying it. Then, by pure coincidence, Semi walked over, completely surprised to see them there. She assumed they had become friends and were hanging out together. Then she pulled out some green onions from her bag, which she had bought from a produce store, and gave them each a bunch. She also told them to stop arguing and go home to sleep so they could actually wake up in the morning. She left them standing there holding green onions, completely bewildered by what had just happened. Later, Jun texted John, asking why he didn't go play basketball. John replied that he had a meeting. Yoo Chan wasn't avoiding his friends. He had an important, prearranged meeting. Turning the corner, he saw Sami's retreating figure as she strode away alone. He called out after her, but she didn't seem to hear him. Just then, a white sedan sped past her and screeched to a halt. The doors flung open, and two men jumped out, gesturing for her to get in. She shook her head. She backed away. John's gut screamed danger, possible kidnappers. He sprinted towards her, so fast that he managed to grab her arm just as one of the men reached her. Her heart sank. She knew exactly who the man was and was terrified of what John would do if he found out. He didn't let go of her, staring down the sharply dressed stranger. Sami's reaction told him she knew this person. She quickly explained that she only knew the person in the car and didn't want to see him. John suggested they run, but she told him to stay put. She wanted to make her relative back down. She marched towards the car and yanked the door open. She practically yelled that she would never go back, even if they tried to kidnap her. She would run away again. Her words had an impact. The man got back in the car and sped off. John, seeing the fear in her eyes, panicked. He was worried she might faint. She assured him she was fine, but found it strange that John was so worried about her. Sami explained it was probably because of her anxiety and added that she was on medication now and felt much better. The guy was startled. Her voice was a bit shrill, so he asked who the woman in the car was. When John found out it was a relative, he was completely confused. He berated himself for intervening without knowing the situation. But Sami snapped that it was all her fault. The woman went home, knowing she messed up. Sami lost her cool, and now she had to deal with the consequences. It seemed the girl couldn't stand them, but the woman just wanted to bring her there and feed her properly. She hadn't even gotten a word in before I started berating her, and then some guy jumped out, which set her off completely. John tried to figure out why his girlfriend was so on edge around her relative. When the relative got home, she kept complaining about Sami's stubbornness, and now John was dying to know what was really going on with Sami. He was bursting with curiosity, but didn't dare to go straight up and ask, afraid of hurting Sami. The next morning at school, he ran into Jun, who clearly sensed they had a fight. John assured him everything was fine, just running errands and swinging by, because someone wanted him to hand out a form. But Jun was convinced his friends were avoiding him. They hadn't seen each other, let alone spoken, in ages. Yoo Chan reassured him that things happen, but the truth was he wasn't avoiding his friend at all. He continued walking when he heard a thud. Turning around, he saw Jun clutching his temple. He explained that he'd bumped into the door because he suddenly felt dizzy, which was strange for him. The guy admitted to feeling unwell since morning. A worried John offered to take him to the infirmary, but he refused, thinking it wasn't that bad. He even speculated that someone must be gossiping about him, which was why his head was pounding. Meanwhile, Sam's fingers flew across her phone keyboard, sending a message to Sun Jun. The message upset her. She wanted to reply, but Sam ultimately wrote, "This is our last conversation." She realized her attempts to help had completely backfired. A colleague reminding her she shouldn't have brought the food only added fuel to the fire, followed by her grandmother chiming in. Sam had pleaded with everyone to let things be. Now all they could do was sit quietly and wait for her to come back on her own. The next day, Sam helped out in the cafeteria. Although the chef worried she'd miss classes, school wasn't her priority, especially now that she needed to earn more money. Biao Jun felt a wave of panic as he realized he was coming down with a fever on his way to class. Tomorrow was the day he was supposed to meet his mom. He thought about rescheduling, but that would surely break her heart. Just then, Sam, who was taking out the trash, bumped into him. He was surprised to see her in an apron and plastic cap. She explained she was helping out in the cafeteria today. She had no idea how messy everyone got after eating. Everything had to be washed, wiped, and there were countless small tasks. Suddenly, June clutched his ears, experiencing a ringing sensation, while Sam thought he was just reacting to a loud noise. A shout came from somewhere, telling them to move. Turning around, the girl saw a ball flying towards them. Seeing her friend hesitate, she decided to save him from getting hit, pushing him out of the way with her whole body. But he stood firm, and the ball bounced off her instead. Thankfully, it was just a light beach ball. The boys playing nearby apologized for the awkward situation, while Sam noticed June's temperature rising. He suddenly lost consciousness, collapsing against her and almost knocking her over. John kept apologizing for getting her into trouble. One could say it was a silly coincidence meant to bring these two together. But just then, Tabin appeared. He pushed June away and pulled Sam towards him. He knew coincidences existed, but thought this might all be fate, so he decided to take the initiative and change everything.